Chapter 1017. The aluminum dragon's appearance was not shiny silver. On the contrary, it had a grayish-white texture. Slender and soft were the first impressions of the aluminum dragon. However, although the aluminum dragon's face was long and narrow, the lines were very rough, somewhat destroying the overall soft texture. Instead, there was a strange sense of power. The body was currently only about 30 meters long, and the wingspan was also about 30 meters. It was not a large body, but considering that it was only 50 years old, it was not small. Only Liszt, who was hiding in the material boundary, could see the details of the spiritual battle of Florenza Windchaser Arrow. It was not a complicated process. Just ride on it. And then the aluminum dragon paused for a moment. The next moment, it shook its neck and threw Florenza out. Then it roared at him and flew into the blue sky and white clouds without looking back. Obviously, Florenza had failed. Liszt's lips curled into a smile when he saw all this. The truth was just as he had expected. To ride a dragon, with Florenza's talent, it was still a little lacking. Achi asked curiously, "Brother, if these people really succeed in riding the dragon, are we going to release the aluminum dragon? Aren't dragons very precious creatures that can't be given up no matter what?" Liszt rubbed her hair. "If they really succeed in riding the dragon, it's okay. Things like fate, even if you don't fight for it, it will still come to you. If it's not yours, you won't get it even if you fight for it. Let's do what we have to do, and let fate decide the rest." Whose side was fate on? Obviously, it was on Liszt's side. Florenza had already failed to ride the dragon. The young knight, who was thrown to the ground, looked at the aluminum dragon disappearing into the distance. He lay on the mud and did not get up for a long time. He had been confident that he could ride the dragon successfully, and the aluminum dragon had also expressed its affection for him. He did not expect the outcome to be like this. However, Florenza's blow had not reached the end. When the news of his failure spread, he was greeted by the disappointed and indifferent eyes of Piero Grey-Iron Duke and the suppressed gloating of Pylov Earthen Fury. There was also Pie Carter Earth Fury, who kept asking him about the details of the Battle of the Souls. According to the agreement between the three families, the one who failed to ride a dragon was obliged to reveal the process of the Battle of the Souls to the others. In the small castle, Liszt was also holding a teacup, sipping tea as he listened to Florence's story. He stumbled. Florenza reluctantly revealed the reason for its failure in the Battle of the Soul. It turned out that in the Battle of the Soul, the aluminum dragon was in its adult form and could turn into a stream of water. It did not use violence. Instead, it needed Florence to defeat its liquid form and successfully find the Dragon Tooth platform. That's why you can't even find the Dragon Fang platform in a ball of liquid. Piero gnashed his teeth in anger. "Don't you remember anything I told you about dragons? Father, you can't understand the power of the aluminum dragon in the Battle of the Soul." Florenza straightened his neck, full of anger in his stomach. Seeing that he could not dig out more information, Pylov hurriedly left with his son Pie Carter, ready to use the silver coins he had prepared to attack the aluminum dragon and gain favor for the chance of the Battle of the Souls. It was easy to gain favor for a young dragon, especially if it was something it liked. But no matter how simple it was, it had to be done in seconds. Any delay could lead to changes. Liszt was also ready to leave. The conspiracy had not been revealed, and obviously, it would not unfold now. But before he walked out of the castle, Florenza Windchaser suddenly chased after him. "Your Majesty, Florenza is sorry for taking up your time." Liszt looked at Florenza curiously, not knowing why the other party was looking for him. Florenza knelt on one knee. "Florenza, who failed to ride a dragon, has no reason to stay in the Grey-Iron Duchy. As an illegitimate child, I have not done anything for the duchy. The Grey-Iron family has no place for me. I hope to follow your Majesty." He was actually ready to surrender to Liszt, which surprised Liszt. "Why do you want to follow me? There is no place for me in the Grey-Iron Duchy, and the Eagle Kingdom will not like me either. Only the Fire Kingdom is my best choice. Your Majesty's great achievements in the past are all existences that I admire. To be able to follow behind your Majesty is the best path for Florenza. These words were very frank. Whether judging from the relationship or the future, Liszt was a very suitable lord to follow. Although Florenza did not succeed in riding a dragon, he had received the preliminary recognition of the aluminum dragon. At a young age, he was about to complete his combat power. Obviously, his talent was also very good, and he could be recruited as a follower. Get up. I need Duke Piero's permission to follow you. In fact, this is what Father wants me to do. Oh, why? Probably because he is no longer optimistic about the future of the Grey Iron Duchy. The aluminum dragon failed to ride a dragon, and this country has almost no way out. After losing the dragon and becoming enemies with the Eagle royal family, my father needs someone to make a reasonable choice for the family. He also has an illegitimate child who has the hope of riding a dragon in the next round, and I hope to continue the family's existence in the Fire Kingdom. Very well, I can accept your following, but from here to the Fire Kingdom, you have to go by yourself. You have plenty of time to think on the way. If you regret this choice, you can leave halfway. I won't regret it. Florenza stood up and solemnly bowed to Liszt. He had already decided to go to the Fire Kingdom. He wanted to leave this place of shame and disappointment. But what he did not know was that while he was packing, saying goodbye to Duke Piero, and setting out on his own, Liszt had been secretly watching him. It was not until he left the Grey Iron Duchy and far away from the wilderness south of the Solid Land that Liszt was sure that the conspiracy had nothing to do with him. If it has nothing to do with Florenza, then it doesn't have much to do with Piero. Otherwise, the conspiracy would have started a long time ago. This means that the person who started the conspiracy, the conspirator of the noble Frost Empire, should be standing behind the Earth Berserker family. Next, I will continue to send more blood servants to monitor the Earth Berserker family. There was no conspiracy, which made Liszt very disappointed. He did not like to be remembered. If Picarder Earth Berserker wanted to conquer the aluminum dragon, it might take a few more months, which meant that he had to guard against a conspiracy for a few more months. Fortunately, there were blood servants monitoring the Earth Berserker family. He did not need to stay on the Solid Land all the time, so naturally, there was no danger. He could develop in the territory with peace of mind. Unfortunately, the smoke mission had to continue to be delayed. After Liszt left here, a few blood servants quietly sneaked into the castle of the Earth Berserker family and carefully worked as servants. Only at night, they quietly turned into bats and inquired around. That night, a blood servant in the form of a bat carefully avoided the magic circle set up by the castle and hung upside down in a secret corner of the conference room. He heard the meeting clearly from beginning to end. At first, it was Pylov and his two sons, Picarder and Pilot, who were discussing how to conquer the aluminum dragon. Soon, a guest was welcomed in. As soon as they entered the door, Pylov, the Marquis of the Boulder, questioned, "You said that you would make a move when Florence was riding a dragon. Why didn't you make a move? Now that Liszt has left, there's no chance to make a move." "Don't worry, Marquis Pylov. There's a reason not to attack. Although my teacher is powerful, he has to deal with the invisible dragon. He must be cautious because there is only one chance. Isn't this a good time?" Florence rode the dragon, and Liszt must be watching from the side. Do you think that the Dragon Knight, who can create a new kingdom, will lose his mind and be completely defenseless because of an aluminum dragon? Be patient. Let him think that attacking the aluminum dragon is really a happy cooperation. Only in this way, the next battle of the mind will he relax. And then, hearing this, the blood servant held his breath and heard the guest say gloomily, "Then it is time to give Liszt a fatal blow." The atmosphere in the conference room seemed to have paused. A moment later, the guest then said, "At that time, the holy dragon invisible dragon will be owned by my lord. And the Earth Berserker family, Picarder and Pilot, can continue to attack the aluminum dragon. As long as they succeed, with the support of my lord, they will establish a new Grand Duchy and join the dragon-raising family." Please remember this book's domain name. Nine Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Website. Chapter 10:18. There's only one chance to kill in one blow. Well, It is indeed a perfect plan, so I'm a lot more relieved. Sure enough, the Marquis of the Boulder and the noble Frost Empire have colluded to plot against me. The one wearing the bearskin should be swept into the garbage heap of history. The noble Frost Empire and the Marquis of the Boulder probably could not imagine that their conspiracy had long been seen through by List. After seeing through the conspiracy, List relaxed instead. The preparations had already been done, and now he was waiting for the second battle of the mind to come. At that time, he could beat them at their own game, catch all the plotters of the noble Frost Empire in one fell swoop, and then take the opportunity to snatch the underage aluminum dragon. Now for the next few months, it will be fine as usual. List was going to act as usual for the next few months, waiting for the Marquis of the Boulder and Pie Carter Earthrage to have the battle of the mind, and then go to deal with the conspiracy. However, only a month later, there was new news from the Blood Servant. Pie Carter and the aluminum dragon hit it off. It only took a month and a few silver coins to win the favor of the aluminum dragon, and he was ready to let Pie Carter have the battle of the mind. This was an unexpected change, and no one thought that Pie Carter and the aluminum dragon would hit it off so well. There were almost signs of it being predetermined. For this reason, List could not wait any longer. Achi, get ready, let's go to the solid ground, see this battle of the mind, and face the next conspiracy. Well, brother, don't worry, Achi is fully prepared. At that moment, the two went to the solid ground, quietly hiding in the material boundary, peeping at the aluminum dragon and Pie Carter, who was circling around the aluminum dragon from a distance. He even checked the camp of the Earth Berserker family, but he didn't find anything strange. They were all ordinary knights. If there were no smoke mission reminders and no report from the Blood Servant, List might really believe that this was a friendly cooperation. But now he always maintained 120% vigilance, and also let Achi follow closely behind, secretly protecting himself in the material boundary. With Achi's strength of instant super magic, she could block the assassination for him in the first place. Everything seems to be normal, but it is precisely this normal state that exudes abnormalities. Achi, be careful. Don't worry, big brother. I'll protect you. Not just to protect me, but also to protect yourself. List smiled and immediately appeared on the invisible dragon. He took the initiative to greet Pylov and draw the snake out of its hole. Marquis Pylov, your son is very outstanding to be able to conquer the aluminum dragon in such a short time. Haha, thank you for your compliment, Your Majesty. All of this is due to Pie Carter's own efforts, but he can't be compared to you, Your Majesty. To be able to conquer an aluminum dragon means that the knight's glory is on the Earth Berserker family. Pylov couldn't suppress his excitement. He wanted to stay calm, but he couldn't. Dragon. The dragon that stood at the pinnacle of power in this world. A dragon knight who could control a dragon would be able to establish a kingdom that belonged to his family and become a member of the dragon-raising clan. For this opportunity, the Earth Berserker family was willing to bet everything. Soon, List, Pylov, and Piero were sitting in the same tent again. The gray iron Duke Piero's face was green, as if his wife had been tormented for 3 days and 3 nights. The aluminum dragon was discovered by his illegitimate son, and he spent a lot of the family's resources to conquer it. Now, he was only one step away from losing both the dragon and the wealth. How could he remain calm? Behind him was another illegitimate son, a very young knight. If there was a chance, he would be the next knight to try to ride the dragon. Now, this young knight's eyes were also green, and he couldn't wait to eat Pie Carter immediately to stop him from riding the dragon. Pylov, the Marquis of the Boulder, was full of smiles, not caring about Piero's anger. This was a glorious moment for the Earth Berserker family, so why not smile? On the other hand, List's face was calm, as if he didn't care whether Pie Carter could successfully ride the dragon or not. In fact, he was very focused at the moment, and he could transform into a phoenix and escape at any time to avoid the noble Frost Empire's killing scheme. Bone Dragon Winnie formed a faint skull pattern on his face. Once a battle broke out, it would immediately transform into armor to protect List and provide List with a godly weapon, the Bone Dragon Sword. Little fire dragon Leo also maintained his vigilance, ready to transform into a majestic fire dragon at any time and fight head-on. Invisible Dragon Bard escaped into the material boundary, constantly vigilant to prevent other dragon knights from sneaking up. Achi and Unicorn Charlie stood on the back of Invisible Dragon, also ready to attack. Everything was ready, except for the east wind. And this east wind was actually hidden in the camp. In a tent, two people dressed as night were holding some kind of mirror-like equipment and observing. There was no surface on the mirror, only magic patterns that formed a strange pattern that was still flashing. Advisor, the archmage called Achilles, is in the sky above the camp, and the target is in the tent. Should we make a move now? If we attack now, do you have any chance of winning? I have the confidence to kill Lys directly, and then use the emerald fruit to stun the invisible dragon. But are you sure you can stop that sea archmage? Young archmage, it is said that he has already grasped the water and ice element incarnations. But this is not enough in front of me. Domineering, I admire Advisor's domineering attitude. Then let's start the assassination. Don't you want to wait? Wait until Pi Carter is in the spiritual battle before you start the assassination. If we assassinate now, we won't be fully prepared, and Lys' attention won't be easily diverted. Perhaps Advisor is good at planning conspiracies, but I'm good at assassinating me. A true assassin who walks in the shadows doesn't need to be fully prepared. He only needs to take the enemy by surprise. The assassin dressed as a knight said as he took off his armor and clothes. He was naked, and his body was covered in black veins. The veins were so dense that it looked like he was wearing a layer of silk tights. The next moment, the assassin jumped directly into the shadows in the corner of the tent, as if he was jumping into a river, and his body seemed to melt into the shadows. Seeing the assassin disappear, the knight called Advisor also took off his armor and put on a gorgeous golden magic cloak from a box on the side. He took out a magic staff decorated with more than a dozen gems and held it in his hand, activating each gem in turn. Then he glanced at the mirror equipment in his hand, and when the magic patterns on the mirror formed a suitable pattern. A serious expression hung on his slightly old face, and he fiercely inserted the magic staff in his hand into the ground, activating all the gems at once. The next moment, a golden light burst out from the top of the magic staff, radiating like sunlight, instantly illuminating the entire space. In the blink of an eye, this golden light enveloped a distance of more than 100 kilometers. In the sky and on the ground, there was a dazzling golden magic radiance. The sun shines. There is nowhere to escape. The old mage whispered softly. At the same time, the tent where Lys was located was also penetrated by this incomparably brilliant light, illuminating dim figures on the ground. At this moment, Lys' heart suddenly jumped, and his pupils rapidly dilated. Immediately after, he saw a distorted human figure jump out of a shadow. This distorted human figure held a ferocious greatsword made of countless broken crystals in his hand, and it pierced through Lys' chest. The roar of thunder armor seized from the previous generation's light green gem dragon knight, Carl Low Violet, did not play any defensive role. Before he could do anything, the broken crystal greatsword pierced through his heart. Death is like the wind, always by my side. The distorted human figure let out a harsh voice, like a mocking laugh, but also like a declaration of death. The next second, this distorted human figure jumped out of Lys' shadow without looking back. Its gloomy body bent down, and its legs bent, ready to jump toward the invisible dragon that was diving to rescue him. But he did not wait for him to jump. A huge block of ice had already smashed down from the top of his head. He was already prepared and was about to twist his body to avoid it. But at this moment, he suddenly felt as if his back was scalded by a red-hot iron block. A flame had unknowingly wrapped around his body, and an indifferent voice came into his ears. Death is like the wind, always by my side. This line of yours is good, but it belongs to me now. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1019. The distorted figure looked back and saw that List Flames, who had been stabbed in the chest by his sword, had really turned into a ball of flame. The flame hand had already grabbed him. It bound him and made it impossible for him to dodge. The flame seemed to turn into a large bird, but it maintained its human form. One could vaguely see List's blurry face. There was a pair of clear eyes on the face, and the gaze was as cold as his tone, as if he was looking at a dead man. Ew. The distorted figure did not have time to be shocked before a huge block of ice smashed towards his head. With a bang, the distorted figure was directly smashed into the ground by the solid ice. It was unknown if he was flattened or not. However, List would not easily believe that an assassin who could jump out of the shadows could be smashed to death so easily. He quickly canceled the Phoenix incarnation that he had activated at the critical moment. He then contacted Bone Dragon Winnie. In an instant, a set of Bone Dragon armor forcibly shattered the damaged Thunder Roar, re-equipping List. The Bone Dragon sword replaced the Ice Soul Dragon Slaying Sword as his weapon. His eyes coldly swept across the tent that was still shrouded in golden light. Piero was already dumbfounded, at a loss for what to do with the sudden turn of events. Pilov looked at List in horror, as if he was shocked by the assassination, but in reality, he was terrified that List was actually unharmed. As for the others, some were panicking, some were panicking. List did not care about these people. To him, they were just a group of ants. Right now, he needed to find the assassin who could threaten his safety. The assassin who could jump out of the shadows was undoubtedly the shadow incarnation of the noble Frost Empire, and his strength was far beyond the 3 levels of shallow shadow, deep shadow, and shadowless. That sneaky and thunderous assassination was definitely unimaginable strength and methods. If this person did not die, he would not be able to eat and sleep in peace. Do you really think you can hide from my eyes? List smashed the huge block of ice with his sword, only to see a human-shaped hole under the ice. There was no assassin's corpse. Obviously, the assassin had once again merged into the shadows. However, under the skull-like helmet, List was casting magic eyes, carefully observing every inch of the shadows and sensing every change in magic. In the sky, Wuxia, the invisible dragon's cry was full of anger. Someone had dared to ambush and assassinate its knight in front of it. This was simply a ruthless slap in the face to its proud dragon life. Moreover, it was also extremely concerned about List's safety. In its heart, List's figure was gradually becoming clearer, and it was not far from the success of the spiritual imprint. The golden light sealed the space, making it unable to rush to List's side immediately. It could only spit out dragon's breath to shatter the space around the tent. They worked together with List to seal off the assassin's escape route. The enemy could seal off List, and List could also seal off the enemy. The plan to kill in one strike had failed, and now it was time for List to take the lead. Riding on a unicorn, Achi closely followed the invisible dragon down. The expression on her exquisite and beautiful face was very serious, and her heart was full of remorse. She blamed herself for not being able to cast a spell in time to block the assassin's attack. Even though List had escaped the crisis with the help of the Phoenix incarnation, she still could not forgive herself. She had said that she would protect her brother, but now she had failed to do so. The anger in her heart needed to be vented. After instantaneously casting the high-level ice magic, Eternal Ice, she quickly set up a purification magic formation, choosing to disperse the golden light, shrouding an area of 100 kilometers. Magic blossomed from her hands, and under the amplification of Charlie the Unicorn, countless invisible ripples spread. The ripples rapidly collided with the golden light, producing a seemingly silent yet ear-piercing sound of glass shattering. The golden light only lasted for less than 10 seconds before collapsing bit by bit. The space sealed by the golden light immediately returned to its original state, and the invisible dragon was once again able to pass through the material boundary. At the same time, a considerable commotion came from one of the tents. It was the magic staff inlaid with a dozen gems in the hands of the spellcaster wearing a golden magic cloak. With a loud rumble, the gems shattered into fine powder. This, the middle-aged spellcaster was shocked. Achi's eyes flashed in midair. Found it, the source of the space seal. Charlie, let's go down. Those who dare to harm my brother are not good people. They must all be killed. Although she was a pure siren, she had never been a greenhouse vase. She had lived in the sea since childhood. How could she be soft-hearted when fighting with sea monsters all the time? Snort! The golden spiral horn on Charlie the unicorn's head flashed, and with a leap, he had already rushed in front of the tent. Achi casually fanned the tent away with a gust of wind. After mastering the earth elemental embodiment perfectly, she had been practicing the wind elemental embodiment and had already achieved some small success. The tent was blown away, and a golden light bloomed from the original position of the tent. The middle-aged spellcaster wearing a golden magic cloak reacted in time. This golden light was the magic he had released. But Achi, who was holding the 8 dragons' divine sword in her hand, wearing a gemstone crown on her head, and wearing a magic cloak, only gently waved the divine weapon in her hand, and ice quickly condensed in front of her. Boom! Although the ice was shattered in an instant, the golden light also dissipated. Seeing this, the middle-aged spellcaster snorted coldly. He casually released a seemingly powerful lightning magic and said coldly, Siren Jr., the vastness of the truth is not something you can understand now. Lightning storm. As his voice fell, boom, a huge storm suddenly rose from his hand, mixed with countless lightning bolts, and attacked Achi. Achi never bothered to communicate with strangers. She just waved the 8 dragons' divine sword again. Countless rocks and soil rose from the ground, like an underground monster opening its mouth, and quickly swallowed the lightning tornado. Then there were a few crisp sounds from the soil bag, but the bag was not torn apart. Then everything became silent. The middle-aged spellcaster was shocked again. He did not have time to think, and was about to release the magic again. Achi was one step ahead. Countless streams of water condensed in the air, directly entangling the middle-aged spellcaster like a chain, and then gently pulled outwards. The middle-aged spellcaster suddenly dislocated his limbs. Of course, it was not known whether the dislocations or the bones were broken. The middle-aged spellcaster screamed, and then he endured the severe pain. Why is your magic so strong? Achi had no intention of communicating. She was about to instantly release Eternal Ice to freeze the spellcaster, and then hand him over to Liz to deal with. The middle-aged spellcaster was not willing to be bound. He opened his mouth and released a new magic. This was a wind magic, and a breath could form a wind blade that could tear everything. However, to the middle-aged spellcaster's surprise, as soon as the wind blade was formed, the eternal ice also condensed. It froze him, and the wind blade he had just spat out in the eternal ice, vivid and lifelike. His body was frozen, but his mind could still function. Through the transparent ice, the middle-aged spellcaster looked at Achi's back as she left, and there was only one thought left in his mind. Why is this happening? Begging for monthly votes. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Website. Chapter 1020. Thanks to Brahma and Traveler's Lost Star for their 10,000 coins. After easily freezing a weak magic shooter, Achi did not hesitate to ride the unicorn Charlie to the central tent where List was. The invisible dragon bard had already sealed the space around the tent, and Achi could not get close. She could only reinforce a water wave shield to prevent the assassin from escaping. Big Brother will be fine. The Phoenix incarnation ignores physical attacks and can heal even the most serious injuries in an instant. But she still maintained the concentration to release magic at any time, quietly waiting for news. At this moment, List in the tent did not see the assassin's location through the vision of the magic eye, which made him a little confused. He could clearly feel that the assassin was hiding in someone's shadow, but he could not lock onto the assassin's position. It was really strange. Winnie, switch vision. I want to use the bone dragon vision. Yes, your majesty. After a moment, List's eyes under the helmet had been replaced by a ghostly blue will-o'-the-wisp. His vision also suddenly changed, turning into a strange grayish-white world. In his vision, there was only a gray outline of matter in reality, and only the soul was truly presented in his vision. It floated around like a light bulb, emitting light. "Your Majesty, this has nothing to do with me." Duke Piero stood in the corner and said with a trembling voice. At this moment, Liszt gave him a huge pressure. Pilov also hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I also don't know why the assassin appeared." "Shut up." Liszt glanced over. His cold killing intent was not concealed at all. He had already seen a strange light. It was at Pilov's feet. This white light was very distorted, but vaguely showed a human figure bound in shadow. It was obviously the assassin. The assassin's special magic concealment method could even deceive the magic eye, but it could not hide his own soul. The next moment, under Pilov's widened eyes, Liszt raised the bone dragon sword and suddenly stabbed at his feet. At this moment, Pilov only felt that Liszt wanted to kill him on the spot, not giving him a chance to explain his participation in the conspiracy. So he immediately chewed the dog urine moss hidden in his mouth. "You devil! For the glory of the great Earth Berserker family, you deserve to die," he roared. Boom! His body swelled up like a balloon. All of this happened very quickly to others, but to Liszt, it was extremely slow. He did not care what Pilov was thinking at all. The bone dragon sword stabbed straight into Pilov's shadow. The bone dragon could see that the bone dragon sword had accurately stabbed into the assassin's distorted soul. It was only a momentary pause before the assassin's distorted soul flowed to the other side like a stream of water. It was obvious that the bone dragon sword had not locked onto him. The assassin's methods also ignored physical attacks. "Leo, help me." Liszt made a prompt decision. He gave up the bone dragon sword and reached down with both hands to grab the distorted soul. He communicated with Leo, who was ready to attack. The violent fire dragon magic mixed with his supreme magic do chi completely poured into the fingertips of his hands. He pounced forward and directly grabbed the distorted soul that was jumping away. Flames appeared in his hands, and the dragon's might was wild and violent. The distorted soul suddenly showed its figure. It was a strange, blurry body that was being bound by the flames. It could not escape and could only let out a sharp scream. Countless fire elemental magic surged into his body, almost instantly dispersing the magic in his body. He could no longer maintain his balance, and the special method he used also collapsed, completely revealing his human body, a pitch-black body full of tattoos. His neck was just grabbed by Liszt. He asked coldly, "Who gave you the courage to assassinate me?" The tattooed assassin could not say anything. His body trembled as if he was electrocuted. That was the fire magic burning his internal organs. Clatter! A big sword made of broken crystals fell down. It was the one he used to assassinate Liszt. At this time, Pilov, who was busy transforming, finally waved his basin-sized fist and smashed it towards Liszt. "Go to hell." Liszt slowly turned his head. The bone dragon armor automatically extended a small bone dragon claw from his shoulder to meet Pilov's fist. However, Pilov's fist dodged Liszt's unexpected bone dragon claw and smashed towards the assassin in his hand. Killed to silence. The accident did not affect Liszt's movements. He was just in the grass. The bone dragon wings on the back of the bone dragon armor directly enveloped the assassin and blocked Pilov's fist. The seemingly powerful fist smashed onto the bone dragon wings, but it did not hurt or itch. The bone dragon sword, which had already recovered its bone dragon tail, swept horizontally and forcibly smashed Pilov into the ground. It sank deep into the ground, leaving a perfect outline of a human body. Then Liszt lifted his foot and lightly stepped on it. Pilov could not struggle no matter how hard he tried. There was even the sound of bones breaking. No matter how violent a person wearing bare skin was, in front of a knight who had fused with a dragon, he was just a slightly bigger ant. Even though Liszt had fused with an incomplete bone dragon, he could still easily crush the marquis of the boulder. "Who gave you the courage? Is it Liang Jingru?" Mission completed. Reward: Gray Iron family defecting. The crippled assassin was thrown to the ground by Liszt. The orichalcum shackles completely restrained the assassin's magic. The assassin had high magic of the dark attribute. What surprised Liszt was that a shadow incarnation could actually cultivate high magic. The Marquis of the Boulder Pylov was also shackled by the orichalcum shackles and was watched over by Duke Piero. His son Pi Carter was also shackled. In fact, even if they were not shackled, they would not be able to do anything. They had already been beaten half dead by Liszt's iron fists. Moreover, a chi had already rushed over on her unicorn. All that was left was to release the high-level magic, eternalize to freeze them one by one. At this moment, looking at the uneasy expressions of the people in the camp, Liszt was slightly distracted and had already called out the smoke mission. The mission regarding the 2 spiritual battles had been completed successfully, but the reward was the gray iron family defecting. This made him feel interesting. However, he did not continue to pay attention to it. He checked the new smoke mission. Quest. As the king of the Fire Kingdom, the conspiracy of the noble Frost Empire against you is undoubtedly a huge provocation. You cannot tolerate it. However, the noble Frost Empire is far away and beyond your reach. Why don't you vent your anger on the perpetrator of the conspiracy? Reward. Cultivation manual of the person wearing bear skin. Vent your anger on the conspirators. Are you referring to these few? Liszt looked at the assassin covered with a piece of rag, the Earth Berserker father and son lying unconscious on the ground, and the magic shooter frozen in a block of ice outside. Next, it is indeed time to properly calculate the bill for this assassination. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 10:21. The camp in the wilderness had been taken over by Liszt. At this moment, he was staring at Piero and interrogating him. Duke Piero, I think you should give me an explanation. I accepted your invitation to preside over the distribution of the aluminum dragon, but I ended up encountering this long-planned assassination. If it weren't for my strong trump card, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to leave here alive today. Your Majesty, please believe me. The assassination has nothing to do with me, the Grey Iron family, and the Grey Iron Duchy. I really wanted to ask you to preside over the distribution of the dragon. All of this must be Pylov's collusion with the assassin, and the Eagle Royal family is adding fuel to the fire. The more Piero spoke, the more nervous he became. It must be so. The Eagle Royal family is behind Pylov, and all of this, including the aluminum dragon, is a conspiracy of the Eagle Royal family. Adonis Moonlight Silver is really insidious. He used me to urgently want to revive the Grey Iron family, and thus led your Majesty here. Piero clearly knew nothing about the noble Frost Empire, so he didn't know that the assassin was from the noble Frost Empire. Now that the High Mage and the assassin couldn't speak, and the father and son were unconscious, no one could tell Piero what the truth was. Therefore, after thinking about it, Piero increasingly believed that all of this was supported by the Eagle Royal family. Your Majesty, Adonis must have used me. Please believe me. I, Piero, have never thought of betraying your Majesty. Liszt could not deny this. Piero gritted his teeth. This assassination was not successful, and the Eagle Royal family will definitely react soon. Not only will we not get the aluminum dragon, but the Grey Iron Duchy will also come to an end. Your Majesty, please take in the Grey Iron family. The Grey Iron family is willing to follow you to the Fire Kingdom. This was obviously the so-called reward of the smoke mission. After being frightened by the facts in his head, Piero decisively decided to cut off his arm to survive. He abandoned the Grey Iron Duchy and fled to the Fire Kingdom to seek refuge. I will not leave the aluminum dragon to the Eagle Kingdom. Liszt followed Piero's imagination and announced his sovereignty over the aluminum dragon. I will ride the aluminum dragon and let the Eagle Kingdom suffer a double loss. As for the Grey Iron family, I am willing to believe that you, Piero, did not play a role in the conspiracy. Thank you, Your Majesty. Piero heaved a sigh of relief. Liszt added, but are you sure that the Grey Iron family will be of one mind with you and abandon the Grey Iron Duchy for the Fire Kingdom? Piero was stunned for a moment, then he smiled bitterly. Your Majesty is indeed worried. My prestige in the family is not as high as before, and many knight will be afraid of me going to a new country to develop." However, Piero's tone changed as his expression gradually turned serious. "But if we stay, we'll be annexed by Adonis sooner or later. I know this Eagle King. The future of the Gray Iron family has been cut off in the Eagle Kingdom. Only by following your Majesty can the Gray Iron family be revived in the Fire Kingdom. If you really intend to develop in the Fire Kingdom, I welcome the Gray Iron family to expand in the Fire Kingdom. As long as you're able to bring a large number of knight ranks with you and join the Fire Kingdom, you can even inherit the title of Duke. I can keep my position as a Duke without a fief. Under normal circumstances, the title of Duke without a fief was usually given to the children of the royal family of the kingdom, or to marquises with outstanding military exploits. Only a dragon knight could establish a country and be conferred the title of Grand Duke. If the children failed to ride a dragon, they could inherit the title of Duke and continue to manage the duchy. Although the status of a duke without a fief was lower, it was still many times larger than a marquis's fief and could enjoy more resources. Coupled with the Gray Iron family's original heritage, they could still enjoy the treatment of top nobles even though they were no longer in the dragon-raising family sequence. This was the best way to prevent losses. Piero was elated. "I'll try my best to rope in more knight ranks to go to the Fire Kingdom. But just as your Majesty worried, the Gray Iron Duchy is too far away from the Fire Kingdom. Traveling thousands of miles will scare away most knight ranks. Once the Eagle royal family finds out, it's very likely that they'll pursue you along the way. I can draw a map and let you take a safe route to the border of the southern coast of the Eagle Kingdom and the Yellowstone Kingdom. I've built a new transmission array there that directly connects to the Fire Kingdom." Recruiting the Gray Iron family and the Gray Iron Duchy's knight was just an interlude. List restrained the assassin, the archmage, the pile of father and son, and the others. The next step was to attack the aluminum dragon. If time allowed, he could calmly attack the aluminum dragon with silver coins. But it was hard to say that the Eagle Kingdom was not involved in this assassination. To avoid trouble, he decided to use violent means. Signaling Piero to return to the Gray Iron Duchy and prepare to move his family, he searched for the aluminum dragon in the wilderness. Soon, he found the aluminum dragon drinking water in a valley. This 30-meter-long, 30-meter winged metal dragon also found Liszt and his group. Leo and Bard firmly locked on to the aluminum dragon's position. One on the left and one on the right, they flew unhurriedly toward the valley, putting pressure on the aluminum dragon, but not too much so that it would panic and escape. "Leo, Bard, it's up to you." And Ichi asked Charlie to help translate so that the aluminum dragon understand its fate and what choice it should make. Sitting on Bard's back, Liszt said to Ichi, who was riding the unicorn. Charlie could listen to good and evil and communicate with many creatures. He could also communicate vaguely with dragons, and he was a very qualified diplomat. Roar! The aluminum dragon's scales stood up, and it let out a sharp, vigilant cry. Its body arched, ready to fly into the sky and escape at any time. Roar! Wuxia! Leo and Bard each let out a majestic dragon roar in response to the aluminum dragon's vigilant roar. With a snort, the golden horn on Charlie's head flashed, and he had already used his mind to communicate with the aluminum dragon. After a moment of communication, on one side, there were two powerful dragons eyeing it, and on the other side, Liszt promised to let it lie on the silver mountain and sleep. The young aluminum dragon could not make a decision. But in the end, reason prevailed, and it knew that it would be calm for a while. Through Charlie's translation, it expressed its willingness to let Liszt have a spiritual battle. But if the spiritual battle failed, Liszt had to let it go. Okay, Liszt did not hesitate. He was very confident in himself, and he already had a lot of experience in spiritual battles. He also knew how the aluminum dragon's spiritual world fought, so he did not think he would fail. If he really failed, he would let it go as agreed. He could wait for it to leave, then capture it, and try to use the enigmatic dragon soul fruit for a second spiritual battle. In short, After persuading it with kind words and without a dragon-slaying battle, List successfully got the opportunity to have a spiritual battle. Taking a deep breath, he jumped onto the back of the aluminum dragon with a slightly resentful look and walked step by step toward the exquisite dragon tooth platform. His feet stepped on the bumpy part, and he sat down. In an instant, a wonderful feeling came, and he had entered a sparkling silver world. Begging for monthly votes. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1022. I've contacted the editor, but the editor hasn't replied yet. Please wait for a while. How depressing. DeLong is dead. DeLong is dead. Exploding. Currently typing. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1023. List did not know why an aluminum dragon would like metallic silver so much that even its spiritual world was a world of shiny metallic silver. There were no flowers or trees, only mountains of silver, and a silver-like river flowing from the horizon to List's feet. On the other side of the river, an adult aluminum dragon with cold eyes was staring at List maliciously. In the real world, it was powerless to resist List's oppression, but in the spiritual world, it was completely under its control. Roar! The dragon's roar was undoubtedly an announcement that it would use cruel means to deal with List. This was different from the spiritual battle of Florunza Windchaser Arrow. Florunza did not encounter a battle. It only needed to break the aluminum dragon's liquid form and find the dragon fawn platform. Obviously, this different treatment of the spiritual battle was completely based on the aluminum dragon's likes and dislikes of the candidate for the spiritual battle. It admired Florunza, so the spiritual battle hovered around the bottom line. It hated List, so the spiritual battle was extremely difficult. But do you think this can scare me off, aluminum dragon? List held the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword in his hand, his body wrapped in a faint mist. The mist that represented fate flowed slightly, turning the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword into a fiery red color. Roar! The aluminum dragon turned its nearly 60-meter-long body, its grayish-white scales like a melting candle. It opened its mouth and spat out a silver-white torrent of metal in response to List's provocation. Break! List held the sword with both hands, unleashed his dragon-fighting aura, and slashed the torrent of metal. The aluminum dragon's metal torrent was different from the iron dragon and copper dragon. It was like a ball of viscous liquid, and after being cut open, it could still extend or wrap around him. It wanted to swallow List completely and make him into a statue. However, this little trick couldn't do anything to List. He gathered his dragon's battle chi and turned it into a ball of flame. It directly exploded around his body, causing the torrent of metal to collapse and splatter in all directions. Aluminum Dragon, use whatever methods you have. I want you to completely understand that whether it's the real world or the spiritual world, I am your inescapable nightmare. As List spoke, a pair of wings suddenly extended from his back. They were the wings of the Phoenix Incarnation. With his development of the Phoenix Incarnation, he had already grasped the ability to change parts of the body. Flapping his wings, he rose into the air and looked down at the aluminum dragon that had yet to take off. He didn't know if it was his ability to fly that angered the aluminum dragon, or his bragging that angered it. The aluminum dragon suddenly opened its 60-meter-long wings, and as they flapped, its body began to melt. In the blink of an eye, it melted into liquid form and continuously extended into a pair of dragon wings that covered the sky. The pair of wings continued to rise until they reached the high altitude of the mind world, and then swooped down towards List. It carried the momentum of wind and thunder, as if it wanted to kill List with a single strike. Fancy moves are useless. List's eyes widened, and wisps of smoke fused into his body, so the already fiery red Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword burned even hotter, as if it was a weapon belonging to the fire god. A single spark makes a prairie fire. This sword only exists in dreams. Buzz. Boom. The flaming sword met the wind and thunder wings formed by the aluminum dragon and swung heavily. The flames surged for dozens of miles, as if they were cutting the world, and slammed into the wind and thunder wings. Clang, kacha, crackle. The wind and thunder wings were split in half on the spot, and, at the cut, the liquid aluminum was burned violently by the red flames, emitting dazzling white flames. This was accompanied by a series of tragic cries from the aluminum dragon. Roar! The two wings fell directly to the silver metal ground, and when the white flames were extinguished, the two wings began to meld again, recombining into an aluminum dragon. List did not stop the whole process. He just said coldly, "The mind world is a dream. You can do whatever you want in your dream, but so can I. Because the dream world I have been to is beyond your imagination, and my understanding of the dream world is also beyond your imagination, aluminum dragon." This was the truth. He had indeed participated in the dreams of 5 dragons, including the fire dragon, the invisible dragon, the light green gem dragon, the gray-mouthed iron dragon, and the mountain copper dragon. He had rich experience. Moreover, he had the mystifying dragon's soul fruit, which originated from the emerald dragon and represented the power of dreams. What was more terrifying was that he also had the hind leg of the emerald dragon. Although the hind leg of the emerald dragon was difficult to study, it more or less allowed him, or a chi, to explore some information and pry into a corner of the power of dreams. If he had to describe it carefully, it was like the protagonist Neo in The Matrix who gained superpowers in The Matrix. Because he already understood that the Matrix was an illusory network world, he could pull out the bullets from the heroine's body with his bare hands and fly in the Matrix. The same was true for List. After prying into a trace of dream power, he could also use the smoke around him to strengthen his strength. This was the biggest trump card. He had confidence in riding a dragon. Roar! The aluminum dragon did not believe it and pounced again. The phoenix wings behind List flapped, and he shook his head gently. "Stupid aluminum dragon, becoming my dragon is your unavoidable destiny. Wake up as soon as possible." Puff! The flame sword was waved again, and the huge flame blade cut the aluminum dragon in half. The cut was burning violently. Without waiting for the aluminum dragon's scream, he continued to wave the flame sword and slashed horizontally, cutting the 2 halves of the aluminum dragon into 4. The 4 halves of the aluminum dragon fell to the ground, and soon fused into an aluminum dragon amidst the screams. It panted and stared at List with a solemn expression. Still not convinced? Roar! Of course, the aluminum dragon was not convinced. Its meaning was accurately conveyed to List. Defeating it would not win the battle of the soul. He had to break its liquid transformation, find a dragon-tooth platform, and ride on it. Immediately, it turned into a ball of liquid metal and sank into the silver river, becoming inseparable. This is indeed a bit difficult, but it won't stump me. List felt that he was now like Erlang Shun, who was fighting with Sun Wukong in the art of transformation. He had 3 eyes on top of his head, and even if Sun Wukong could change 72 times, he would not be able to escape his eyes. If you hide, don't blame me for holding back my big move. Screech! With a phoenix cry, List had already turned into a divine phoenix made of flames and arrived above the silver river. He flapped his wings and shook off balls of flames. Soon, the entire silver river was shrouded in flames and burned continuously. When the temperature exceeded 660 degrees Celsius, some of the silver suddenly melted into liquid, not metal silver, but metal aluminum. The melting point of silver was 962 degrees Celsius, and the melting point of aluminum was 660 degrees Celsius. It only took one change to distinguish between silver and aluminum. Among the 5 elements, fire subdued metal, and List completely restrained the aluminum dragon. Roar! The aluminum dragon, which had no choice but to reveal its tracks, could only reluctantly reform into an aluminum dragon. At this time, List had also returned to his human form and landed directly on the back of the aluminum dragon. While the aluminum dragon was struggling, he accurately found the position of the dragon-tooth platform and sat down smoothly. This time, between the human and the dragon, they completed a true spiritual connection, and their consciousness and thoughts were connected. Liz could feel the aluminum dragon's grievance and helplessness at the moment, and the aluminum dragon could also feel Liz's high spirits at the moment. The emotions blended with each other, and finally turned into a loud roar. It flew toward the glittering silver sky, and in the blink of an eye, it had passed through the dazzling silver light. His vision changed, and he returned to the real world. Smelling the familiar smell of the wilderness, there was no longer an adult dragon with a wingspan of 60 meters under his butt, but a young aluminum dragon with a wingspan of 30 meters. On the last day, Laobai begged for monthly votes. Thank you very much. Chapter 1024. Seeking monthly tickets for the big dragon is dead. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1025. When Liszt landed in the Iron Shell Castle on his newly conquered aluminum dragon, Duke Piero looked at the aluminum dragon with a complicated expression and let out a long sigh. In just 2 days, the aluminum dragon had become Liszt's. Such a terrifying method of subduing a dragon left him deeply moved. The last hope of the Grey Iron Duchy had been extinguished. For the sake of the Grey Iron family's continued glory, he could only choose the path of a follower. Your Majesty, 5 of the 12 marquises of the Grey Iron Duchy have been contacted. 2 of them have decided to follow my successor, Pyfort, and stay in the Grey Iron Duchy. The other 3 are my direct followers. They have decided to move their families and follow me to the Fire Kingdom. Piero said, but they hope to see your Majesty and hear your Majesty's promise. Only 3 are willing to leave? What about the other 7? Liszt was a bit disappointed. Not many nobles were willing to leave. Those 7 are all marquises with large fiefs. I have already sent word that if they want to leave, they will follow. If they don't want to leave, they can stay. In addition, a group of earls and viscounts have been contacted. Only 1 or 2 out of 10 will follow me urgently. Given time, Piero was confident that he could mobilize a third of the nobles to follow him to the Fire Kingdom. However, he didn't have that much time. To avoid being intercepted by the Eagle Kingdom, he would only stay here for a few days before leaving. In such a short time, many nobles simply couldn't bring their families' resources with them, so they weren't willing to leave easily. If the Eagle royal family doesn't come stop them, we can let them think it over before leaving. But the Grey Iron Duchy has autonomy. If the nobles are willing to leave, the Eagle royal family won't dare to stop them too much. If they really do, I will stop them. I believe the Eagle royal family won't dare to start another dragon-slaying war. Then I'll mobilize them again. All right, go ahead. I will temporarily stop the Eagle Kingdom. After all, I promised to protect the Grey Iron Duchy for 20 years. This was an excuse for Liszt to stay here. As long as he didn't force the Grey Iron Duchy to leave, the Eagle royal family wouldn't openly turn against him. At most, they would tacitly divide the Grey Iron Duchy with Liszt. Piero was Liszt's representative, and Pyfort should be the representative of the Eagle Kingdom. Previously, there were only 3 families dividing the dragon, and now there were 2 families dividing the duchy. The Earth-Violent family dared to participate in the assassination plot. This was a provocation to the Holy Dragon Knight. It wouldn't be able to appease Liszt's anger without exterminating the family. The Earth Berserker family dared to participate in the assassination plot, which is a provocation to the king of a country and the Holy Dragon Knight. Not exterminating the family would not be enough to appease Liszt's anger. The Smoke Mission also said that he had to vent his anger on a mastermind behind the plot. He really couldn't take revenge on the mastermind behind it, the great Emperor Jupiter of the Frost Empire. He could only collect some interest and wait for the future to expand before settling the debt with the Frost Empire. Father, why does he need my men to help him plunder the Earth-Violent family? This will make me very passive in the future. How will the Grey Iron Duchy deal with the Eagle royal family? In the Iron Castle, Pyfort argued with Piero. Piero looked at his eldest son and heir as if he was looking at a stranger, because he is the great holy dragon knight. No one can disobey his orders, not even our Grey Iron family. Grey Iron Dragon, Aluminum Dragon. Father, you have made too many mistakes in this matter. The Grey Iron family's glory has declined because of you. I did lose the Grey Iron Dragon, but it was Adonis's fault, not mine. I never wanted to bring the family to destruction, but Adonis has already set his eyes on the Grey Iron family. The Aluminum Dragon was a plot. You shouldn't have trusted Adonis, Pyfort. King Adonis is at least more trustworthy than you, Father, to believe someone who stole the family's dragon. The war's fault doesn't lie with Liszt, Adonis, or me. I never felt that Liszt was hateful because he had enough reason to take revenge on the Grey Iron family who participated in the dragon-slaying war. On the contrary, Adonis should have compensated the Grey Iron family for their losses, but he didn't. This is betrayal of the alliance. I don't agree with Father. Forget it. You and I don't need to be so dignified. I won't give up on the Grey Iron family, and you won't give up on the Grey Iron family either. From today onwards, you and I are father and son. I will take the surname Grey Iron and develop in the Fire Kingdom. Do as you wish. After a moment of silence, Pyfort said coldly, the Grey Iron family disappeared in Father's hands, not me. From today onwards, I will take the surname Fallen Iron and remember this shameful period. Oomph. Piero Grey Iron waved his hand fiercely. You're on your own. From today onwards, the Earthen Berserker family will vanish in a thin air, and this castle will be destroyed by me as a warning to all nobles that if they dare act against the Dragon Knight, they will suffer the wrath of the Dragon Knight. Pylov and his son had both been sentenced to death by Liszt. Once they were interrogated and found out about the conspiracy, as well as the cultivation inheritance of the bearskin wearer, they would be exiled to the land of exile. This was the death penalty for nobles, banished for the sake of their reputation. Charge! On the ground, a large number of knights surged towards the castle, while the knight of the Earthen Berserker family guarded the castle closely. Seeing this, Liszt immediately brandished the broken crystal greatsword in his hand, sending a wave of cold fighting aura straight into the castle. It split open a crack with a loud bang, and who knew how many knights were killed by the fighting aura? Following the crack in the castle, the charging knights pounced on the castle, drowning it in an instant. This sword is really good. The shape is also very unique and domineering. It's very suitable for me to use. Instead of paying attention to the battle below, Liszt was appreciating the great sword in his hand with relish. This sword was seized from the assassin, and, at the same time, there was actually a mystical dragon soul fruit. This surprised him, but not at the same time. The Emerald Dragon's corpse must have been torn apart. If a soul fruit tree could grow on the Soul Island and bear the mystical dragon soul fruit, other places could obviously do the same. This also meant that the royal family of the noble Frost Empire must also have part of the Emerald Dragon's remains. I don't know if the Emerald Dragon's corpse can be resurrected. This is a sacred dragon with magical power. Unfortunately, the assassin was still unconscious. The great mage who broke the ice was also unconscious, and Pylov and his son were wailing that they didn't know. For the time being, he couldn't interrogate too much information regarding the noble Frost Empire and this conspiracy. He needed to wait for the assassin and the magic shooter to wake up. I'll collect some interest from the Earthen Berserker family first, then I'll deal with this magic shooter and this assassin. Chapter 10:26. The Earthen Berserker family had been overwhelmed by the Berserker Knights. After losing Pylov's leadership, only his eldest son, Pavani Earthen Berserker, was maintaining the castle's operation. Compared to Pylov, whose strength was comparable to a top-level domain knight, Pavani was at most a complete Sky Knight. The three marquises from the Duchy of Grey Iron were all complete Sky Knights. 3 against 1, Pavani was defeated. His fiasco was the same as the war presided over by Liszt. The outcome was already doomed. Everyone, young and old, was captured and turned into prisoners. List stood in front of Pavani, who was shackled by the orichalcum shackles. His bone dragon armor majestically said, "Hand over all the elves' contracts and the wealth of the Earth Berserker family. If you and your 3 brothers commit suicide, I will forgive the Earth Berserker family for trying to kill me." Pavani did not look at his brothers. He only turned to look at his tearful wife and his 3 sons, who were 10, 8, and 4 years old. He then looked at List with grief and indignation. "I am a noble of the Eagle Kingdom. My father and my brothers tried to assassinate you, but they did not betray the morality of a knight. Winner takes all. Do you really want to play literal games with me?" Hearing this, Pavani finally said dejectedly, "I understand. I am willing to represent the Earth Berserker family and confess my sins to His Majesty List. I am also willing to hand over all the elves and wealth of my family. Can I see my father before I commit suicide?" "No," List said casually. Pavani nodded, not asking for anything more. He obediently cut off all the elven contracts and handed them over to List one by one. To List's disappointment, the Earth Berserker family, as an old marquis and inheritor of ancient warriors, should have a dozen or so grand elves. However, apart from the 5 grand elves that had been handed over, the Earth Berserker family only had 6 grand elves left. 2 wheat sprites, 1 iris flower sprite, 1 glutinous rice sprite, 1 ginger sprite, and 1 beet sprite. In other words, the entire Earth Berserker family had only managed to save up 11 great sprites over the years. However, considering that Marquis de Maria Rainflower Stone, there weren't many great sprites. These 11 great sprites were quite a lot, but it was a little different from what List felt. Additionally, the Earth Berserker family had 172 lesser sprites and over 800 sprite worms. It's a little less, but it's still a huge supplement for me. I'll be one step closer to the foundation of the dragon-raising clan. Blazing Island is really too big. No matter how many sprites there are, it'll never be too much. List happily packed up the sprites and fixed them on the back of the invisible dragon. After that, it was time to collect the wealth of the Earth Berserker family. Gems, magical metals, crystals, gold coins, and other resources were all taken by him. The rest of the fixed assets, such as food, copper coins, metals, and other resources, were distributed to the knights who were charging forward. The Earth Berserker family was destroyed, vanishing into thin air. List had already torn through space and returned to his territory with a full load of resources. The news of so many sprites and so much wealth left the Blazing Island's aristocrats astonished. They understood that their son of glory, incarnation of the king, had once again done a big business outside. The Earth Berserker family was destroyed just like that. Marquis Lee William, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, asked in astonishment, "Yes, father. Assassins and archwizards need to be strictly monitored. Not a single oversight can be left behind. As for Pylov and his 2 sons, father will personally preside over the interrogation. Be sure to pry their mouths open. I want to know how the noble Frost Empire colluded with these people to plot against me. Rest assured, I will properly entertain the 3 of them. However, you have to be careful. The news of the destruction of the Earth Berserker family is likely to infuriate the Eagle Royal family. I know. However, I have to protect Piero and the other knight who have sought refuge with me. If the Blazing Kingdom wants to develop, its population is the biggest constraint. Moreover, from the standpoint of this matter, I am the real victim. I believe the Eagle Royal family will not dare to turn against me for the second assassination attempt. Of the 2 assassinations, the first one was a 5-headed dragon and 2 dragon knight, which were killed by List with great force. The second one was a powerful assassin and archwizard from the noble Frost Empire. It was a fatal attack jointly arranged by List, but it was still avoided and killed by him. The Eagle Royal family would definitely not dare to act rashly without the preparation of a fatal attack. Therefore, List returned to the Grey Iron Duchy again. With the remaining power of the destruction of the Earth Berserker family, another group of noble knight from the Grey Iron Duchy joined the migration team. They followed the map drawn by Chi herself and headed in the direction of Realgar City. One could imagine. As the Eagle Kingdom could not come up with any countermeasures, more nobles from the Grey Iron Duchy chose to flee to the Blazing Kingdom to develop. Everyone could see that after losing the dragon, the fate of the Grey Iron Duchy was at stake. Now, it was a multiple-choice question: to join the Eagle Kingdom or the Blazing Kingdom. The advantage of joining the Eagle Kingdom was that there was no need to migrate, and the family could preserve its wealth to the greatest extent. The disadvantage was that as a vassal of a destroyed country, it would not be easy to fight for glory. The disadvantage of joining the Blazing Kingdom was that they had to migrate, giving up a large amount of wealth and serfs. The advantage was that there were opportunities everywhere in the new kingdom. As long as they had ambition, they could eventually develop and strengthen the family. Your Majesty, from now on, the Grey Iron family will fight at the front lines for your Majesty. After leaving the Iron Castle, Piero found that he only brought a group of followers, a few mistresses, and illegitimate children with him. He did not bring a single family member with him. His legal wife decided to stay and live with his son, Pyford, and continue to guard the Grey Iron Duchy that was destined to fail. Look forward, Duke Piero. When Piero left the Grey Iron Duchy with his knight, thousands of kilometers away, in the Eagle Kingdom's palace, the Iron Dragon Chain Palace, King Adonis Moonlight Silver looked at the information in his hands without any expression on his face. He only calmly narrated to the queen. As expected, Great Emperor Jupiter's set his sights on the divine holy dragon, the invisible dragon. However, he thought himself clever and was unwilling to cooperate with me. Instead, he chose that boorish Pilaf. Now, not only did he not get the invisible dragon, he even lost his most important assassin and magic shooter. This is not a good thing, Adonis. Liszt has grown stronger again. He has taken down the aluminum dragon. The queen sighed. I think this is a good thing. I know Great Emperor Jupiter's. He is headstrong, self-opinionated, and extremely vengeful. Just wait. He will not be willing to accept this failure. The next time he comes, he is destined to fight a crazy battle with Liszt, and my chance to benefit from it has come. I hope so. The queen shook her head and asked, how do you think we should deal with the matter of the Earth Berserker family? If Pilaf had not been greedy for the aluminum dragon and reported to me, I would naturally protect the Earth Berserker family. However, he chose to betray me and brought all of this upon himself. Now that Piero is busy running away, I can use the excuse of the Earth Berserker family to swallow the Grey Iron Duchy and make up for the kingdom's losses. Actually, this can't make up for much of the loss. Accumulate strength and wait for the right time. Didn't you and I already foresee this situation? Adonis held the queen's hand and tried to cheer himself up. I have seen the ups and downs of many young heroes. With Liszt's lively personality, he will sooner or later die of his own arrogance if he wants to steal the dragon, even if he has to travel thousands of kilometers. As he spoke, he stood up and smiled as if he was giving pointers. When that time comes, it will be time for me to sweep away my depression and restore the glory of the Eagle Kingdom. Chapter 10:27. Thank you so much. Looking for monthly tickets for The Big Dragon, currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 10:28. The assassin and the high mage had yet to wake up, but Pilaf and his son had already confessed under torture. According to Pilaf, his family had long been in contact with the Noble Frost Empire. Because there was a trade route between them, the Noble Frost Empire quickly used the news of the aluminum dragon to rope in the Earth Berserker family. I don't know how they know about aluminum dragon, but Shadow Incarnate is a huge organization. They must have accidentally heard about aluminum dragon when they were investigating Piero. Everyone knows that Piero and Liszt are involved. Shouldn't the Shadow Incarnation go to investigate? Therefore, after receiving the news of the aluminum dragon, the people from the Noble Frost Empire began to plot. The assassin is called Louis Shadow. He is the most powerful existence among the Shadow Incarnations. He has already surpassed Shallow Shadow, Deep Shadow, and Shadowless. He has reached the peak of the realm of the Dragon Knight and Magic Shooter. I don't know much about this realm. I only know that Lewis calls himself the King of Shadows. Apart from the King of Shadows, Lewis Shadow, there was another magic shooter. He was the royal family's chief magic advisor, Laird Truth. I don't know much about Laird Truth either. I only know that he's a veteran magic shooter with unfathomable strength. Moreover, he has the divine weapon of the noble Frost Empire's royal family, the Light of Imprisonment magic staff. It can seal the void, and no living being can escape from the Light of Imprisonment. Pylov was a tough guy. After suffering all kinds of torture, he only told the whole plot intermittently like squeezing toothpaste. He wasn't familiar with the King of Shadows, Lewis Shadow, or the magic shooter, Laird Truth. Instead, he contacted a middleman. This middleman was the trusted knight of Jupiter the Great. He was in charge of the layout of the entire Eagle Kingdom and the communication with the nobles. Where's the middleman now? Do you really believe he's Emperor Jupiter's confidant? Marquise Oxdale, who was in charge of the interrogation, asked. Pylov sneered. I don't know where he is. He has always been the one looking for us, not us looking for him. Why would I believe him? Don't you think this question is ridiculous? The King of Shadows and the Magic Shooter are standing in front of me, and you ask me if I believe his identity. Do you think I should believe him? You're so confident that you're planning a conspiracy with them to deal with the Flame King? Haven't you heard of the Flame King's illustrious military exploits? You won't understand the temptation of aluminum dragons for a big family like mine. Besides, the assassination will be carried out by them, not me. If I succeed, I'll be able to join the dragon-rearing clan. If I don't succeed, I'll still be able to enjoy my life. I just didn't expect that when List wanted to kill Lewis Shadow, I jumped out. Pylov still regretted his carelessness at that time. List was clearly trying to kill his shadow, but he thought he was trying to kill him. He had no choice but to take action and expose his identity. He still didn't know that List had known about his conspiratorial identity a long time ago. I've said everything I need to say. I've even handed over the cultivation manual for the bearskin wearer. As a captive, I request to pay a ransom in exchange for the freedom of me and my 2 sons. Pylov said, My apologies, Marquis Pylov. The Earth Berserker family has already been destroyed. No one will pay your ransom anymore. Impossible. It's true. Because you assassinated the Flame King, you angered the Flame King. He has already destroyed the Earth Berserker family. Also, I just received news that the Eagle Royal family has made a move. They've announced that the Earth Berserker family has colluded with Duke Piero of the Iron Duchy and attempted to rebel against the Eagle Kingdom. The royal family has already taken back their fief. What? Pylov's eyes widened in anger. Impossible. I thought it was impossible too, but the Eagle King's courage is indeed extraordinary. When he knew that the aluminum dragon was lost, he immediately joined forces with the Flame King to divide the Iron Duchy and the Earth Berserker family to make up for the loss. Lee William was very emotional. Nobles lived around benefits, but such a blatant exchange of benefits still made the last shred of justice and morality in his mind collapse quickly. He shook his head. He walked out of the sturdy underground prison and returned to the administrative office in Reed City. Soon, an assistant came to report. Sir, a Sky Knight who claims to be a follower of the king, Florenzo Windchaser Arrow, wants to enter the Flame Kingdom. He wants permission. Florenzo Windchaser Arrow. Lee William quickly remembered that List had mentioned that there was a man named Florenza who wanted to follow him because he failed to ride a dragon. However, he wasn't sure if he would come. To be recognized by the aluminum dragon, this man was obviously a talent with the potential to become a dragon knight. Lee William nodded. Let him pass and bring him to the administrative office. I'll take care of him myself. List was used to leaving everything to Lee William. He was very busy and had almost no time to rest. However, sitting in the spacious and bright office, Lee felt extremely comfortable. The wine of power was always intoxicating and unable to extricate himself. So there will come a day when I, Lee William, will make all the nobles bow before me, he said. The Eagle royal family moved fast. The Iron Duchy is already a thing of the past. Riding on the aluminum dragon, Lis thought about the news he had just received and felt a little regretful. Only 1/5 of the nobles in the Iron Duchy were mobilized by Piero Grayiron to go to Realgar City. The Eagle Kingdom immediately took action and declared Piero to be a rebel. They also banned the Iron Duchy. At the same time, they announced that all the nobles in the Iron Duchy would be treated equally and that the children of outstanding knight would be allowed to participate in the Dragon Knight selection program. As a result, the nobles who were reluctant to move to Eagle Kingdom took advantage of the situation. Only 4 marquises, 17 earls, and 38 viscounts left with Piero. However, there were more nobles below the rank of baron. These lesser nobles were willing to give up their already limited wealth and were ready to go to the Fire Kingdom to seek opportunities. They wanted to see if they could become great nobles. Lord Wold Bumblebee was such a dreamy baron. His family had been in the business of beekeeping for generations, and their surname was Bumblebee. Unfortunately, there were very few wars in the Iron Duchy. His family was just a small baron who followed a viscount. The viscount was not outstanding. On the contrary, he was timid and had refused to participate in several wars. Naturally, Wild did not have the chance to go to war. He had wanted to leave this viscount for a long time. Now was the perfect opportunity. The Duke had personally called for him to go to the Fire Kingdom. The Fire Kingdom. Wild rode on his horse, his heart pounding as he fantasized about the future. A mighty dragon knight who had risen to legendary status in just a few years. Only by following such a king to establish a new country would the knight's hard work be meaningful. However, his family was on tenterhooks. His wife and his unmarried sister sat in the carriage. The two of them felt the jolting of the carriage, just like how he was feeling now. How much longer until we reach Realgar City? Wild's sister opened the curtains and looked at the endless primeval forest in the distance. Wild's wife shook her head. I don't know. We've been walking in the forest for a week and still haven't finished the journey. I'm starting to wonder if leaving the Iron Duchy was a mistake. Although the original castle was a bit small, it was quite nice to live in. Do you think we can go back? Definitely not. Wild is now wholeheartedly going to the Fire Kingdom to follow the Dragon Knight. He has placed all his hopes of revitalizing the Bumblebee family in the Fire Kingdom. His sister said doubtfully, such a great person should be worth following. His wife sighed. I also know that His Majesty is very great, but such a great person is too far away from us. The Masculine Wind family is just a small noble family. I'm afraid that if we follow His Majesty will not even see Wild Bumblebee's name. Please remember this book's domain name, Godly Emperor of the Nine Heavens mobile version. Chapter 1029. If there were no accidents, Liz would not know the name Alfred Bumblebee. Now that there were more and more knight following him, it was hard for him to pay attention to a single baron. Piero was in charge of opening the way in the mountains and building a bridge in the water. Apart from riding the dragon and driving away the magical beast that might invade the migration team, Roland was also thinking about the clues about the subdragon that Piero Grayiron had provided him. This was the content of the previous spiritual battle. The clue about the subdragon that Piero had provided him was about the giant lion Nimia. There was not much information about the giant lion Nimia in the legends. What Lys knew was that the giant lion Nimia was said to be invulnerable and unkillable. The information Piero possessed also proved this point. 10 years ago, the Grayiron dragon Aon was still called the Grey King. He was the dragon of the Grayiron family that ruled over the Grayiron Duchy. Once, the Grey King went out for a stroll and found a strong lion in the wilderness south of the Grayiron Duchy. The Grey King wanted to hunt the lion for food. However, after fighting with the lion, he actually did not manage to kill it. Of course, the Grey King was not satisfied. After returning to the Grayiron Duchy, he asked Piero to gather magicians to set up a magic formation to hunt the giant lion Nimia. In the end, he still did not kill it. Instead, the giant lion Nimia killed the lion and escaped. I sent people to the land of fertility 3 times. All 3 times, they failed and lost a lot of resources. In the end, nothing came of it. 2 years ago, I went to the land of fertility to hunt and saw the giant lion Nimia from afar. It was still alive and well. I did not see any of its kind. Piero could not catch or kill the giant lion Nimia, but he could not bear to give it up. Thus, he hid the secret and slowly investigated the giant lion Nimia. He was secretly investigating the giant lion Nimia. I found a record. In the era of the Moon Empire, the giant lion Nimia was a social animal. After an indigenous tribe killed the giant lion Nimia, they used its skin to make armor that could contend against magic shooters. Isn't the giant lion Nimia unkillable? There might be a special way to kill the giant lion Nimia. Otherwise, the giant lion Nimia would be overrun, and now there's basically no trace of the giant lion Nimia. Since he had learned from Piero that the giant lion Nimia resided in the southern wilderness, a place called the Land of Fertility, Liszt naturally intended to meet the giant lion Nimia. However, it was not easy to find the giant lion Nimia. Back then, when he was standing on the back of the gray-mouthed iron dragon, Piero had to search for half a month before he could find it. This giant lion, Nimia, would actually hide in a cave to rest, and even the magic eyes could not find it. After clearing his thoughts, Liszt stopped thinking about the great lion Nimia. He had to escort this batch of night to Realgar City before he could take the time. The straight-line distance from the Duchy of Grey Iron to Adamantine City was about 7,000 kilometers. The road was bumpy, and even with the protection of night, it would take at least 2 months to reach Adamantine City safely. On the other hand, Liszt's time was extremely precious. He only escorted the migration knight halfway before he turned around and left. He returned to Flame Island. The reason was simple. High Mage Laird Truth had already awakened, and the interrogation could begin. At this time, High Mage Laird had already put on a custom-made prison uniform to restrict his connection with the magic net and prevent him from casting powerful spells to escape. As for the golden magic cloak he was originally wearing, it was only a gorgeous piece of clothing that slightly increased the power of spellcasting. Laird Truth. Before Liszt could interrogate him, Laird suddenly looked at Liszt and said word by word, "The High Mage who defeated me that day was Sir Aroyd's Truth." Yes, but let's talk about something else first. Who is the mastermind behind this assassination attempt? Isn't it clear who the mastermind is? Apart from Great Emperor Jupiter, there is no one else who can command high mages and the King of Shadows. Laird's face was still pale, but he did not seem tired. King Liszt, let's not beat around the bush. I can tell you everything I know, but I have a request. What request? I want to impart all the knowledge I've mastered over the years to Sir Aroyd's. I hope she can inherit my research and explore deeper truths. What kind of request is that? You still want to be a cheese teacher? No. I've explored the truth for so many years, but my mastery and understanding of magic are not as good as the young High Mage Siren. It's obvious that I'm not qualified to be her teacher. King Liszt, you don't have to doubt my intentions. Assassinating you is just a transaction. I have no ill intentions towards you. Do you think I'll believe you? Why not? I'm a high mage. Exploring the truth is my life's mission. I'm just cooperating with Great Emperor Jupiter. He needs me to host magic services for him, and I need him to provide me with research resources. Then, he'll use the light of imprisonment in exchange for me assassinating you. The light of imprisonment was the destroyed magic staff. Laird said matter-of-factly, "To me, Great Emperor Jupiter doesn't understand the charm of the truth. Unfortunately, the magic shooters in the legendary continent have long withered, so I can only cooperate with the noble Frost Empire. But it's different now. Sir Aroyd's is a rare magic shooter. She's proven that she can go further than all the other magic shooters." Faced with Laird's words, Liszt didn't know how to respond. He was already prepared to torture this magic shooter, make him understand how stupid it was to assassinate him, and interrogate him for information about the noble Frost Empire. He didn't expect Laird to not play by the rules. He didn't take the assassination seriously, and even wanted to cooperate with Qi. "So, you think you can get away with just a few sentences after assassinating me? You want compensation, right? I can't provide you with resources. My mage tower is in the noble Frost Empire, so obviously I have to give it up. But I can use the information I know and my knowledge to exchange for your forgiveness, Laird said. Also, I can stay in the Fire Kingdom and provide magic services for the kingdom. You only need to provide for my daily research needs. The interrogation didn't go smoothly. Or rather, it went too smoothly. Laird didn't have any intention of resisting. With an attitude of, I'm ready to sell myself to repay the debt, he urged Link to hurry up and cooperate. This left List with nowhere to vent his anger. He couldn't just slap Laird to death. Plus, the knowledge of a magic shooter was indeed a temptation that List couldn't resist. So, he could only look for Achi and ask if she was willing to cooperate with Laird. Achi said directly, a magic shooter is indeed worth cooperating with, but he assassinated my brother. Achi doesn't like this kind of person. Without a doubt, Achi supported killing the magic shooter. My brother doesn't like it either, but he's a magic shooter after all. It'd be a pity to waste his knowledge. Also, a magic shooter's research ability can be of great help to your experiments. Let him stay. Tell Charlie to pay attention to his attitude at all times. If he has any ill intentions, kill him. Just like that. Laird Truth had officially joined the Fire Kingdom, but List hadn't vented his anger yet. So, he set his sights on the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, who had recovered from his injuries and was about to wake up. You'll have to bear double my anger for attempting to assassinate me. Chapter 10:30. Laird Truth was pardoned, but the price was that he would serve the Fire Kingdom for the rest of his life and offer all the knowledge and information he had. List was not interested in understanding his knowledge of magic, but the information he had, especially when it came to the Noble Frost Empire, was worth exploring. The time when the Noble Frost Empire was founded was no longer reliable. It was said that it originated from a kingdom 2,000 years ago. Through marriage and other means, it united 3 neighboring kingdoms and formed the Noble Frost Federation Empire. In the next 2,000 years, the royal families of the 4 kingdoms merged, and finally, only one royal family was left. There were some differences between the royal family of an empire and a kingdom or a duchy. The main difference was that the children of the emperor needed to be infeft. Apart from the eldest son who would inherit the throne, the other children would be infeft and change their surnames to start their own families. If the eldest son died, these children would have the chance to live in the palace and become the new emperor, but the chance was very rare. Every generation of emperors received the best resources and were on the throne for a long time. They would often use the method of intergenerational inheritance to pass the throne to their grandchildren. In case the grandson died, the son could step forward and continue to train the grandson. The current great emperor had directly inherited the throne from his grandfather and already had a grandson, so the bloodline of the royal family would not be broken. Emperor Jupiter was a dark dragon knight. His son was also a dragon knight, and his grandson was also a dragon knight. The royal family has a secret treasure. It's a tree related to the emerald dragon. It can bear emerald fruits. You should have seized that emerald fruit from Louis Shadow. It's because of the emerald fruit that every generation of royal family members can ride a dragon as long as their talent is not too bad. Does the Noble Frost Empire have a lot of this emerald fruit? I don't know. Even I can't pry into this secret. Right, there's a question I've always wanted to solve. You can ride so many dragons alone. Do you also have the emerald fruit? Laird Truth stared at List with bright eyes. He was curious about all the information related to the legendary emerald dragon. List asked, "Why do you ask?" "When Emperor Jupiter made a deal with me and asked me to assassinate you, he told me that a knight can't ride a second dragon without external help. All 3 empires possess the emerald fruit, and with the help of the emerald fruit, the twin dragon knight was born." This was an important piece of information. Obviously, the emerald dragon's corpse had been dismembered, and it had been scattered all over the legendary continent, including the Malfa continent. A family that possessed the corpse of an emerald dragon would obviously be able to become a dragon-rearing family that would flourish for a long time. They would not lack enough dragons to make up for it, and only then could they grow into an empire. For example, the flame family founded by List could develop normally for a few hundred years, and it would be the proper model for the rise of an empire. Ryder added, "Unfortunately, the holy dragon has disappeared for thousands of years. None of the three great empires have been able to get their hands on one. You're the only one who has managed to ride an invisible dragon." After getting the news about the invisible dragon, Great Emperor Jupiter summoned me and said that he was determined to get the invisible dragon. Shameless boasting. List was alarmed, but he showed disdain on his face. Ryder shook his head. "I don't know much about the secret forces of the noble Frost Empire, but I know Great Emperor Jupiter very well. Once he wants something, he will pay any price. He won't give up on the invisible dragon in your hands. He will only continue to find opportunities to snatch it away. Then let him come. Even the joint assassination of a magic shooter and the King of Shadows couldn't hurt me. I don't believe that he has any other tricks up his sleeve." List's confidence came from a source. This assassination once again proved that the power of fate favored him, and that all conspiracies and schemes had nowhere to hide. Next, Ryder talked about the strength of the noble Frost Empire. The dragon nest of a noble Frost Empire raised 31 dragons, among which 22 were dragon knights. They were much more powerful than the average kingdom. Fortunately, most of the dragon knights of the noble Frost Empire were used to fight against the unfailing Light Empire. Otherwise, it would have been easy for them to annex the surrounding small countries, and they would have expanded eastward long ago. Ryder then talked about the political structure of the legendary continent. The unfailing Light Empire was recognized as the strongest country, followed by the Blue Dragon Empire, and finally the noble Frost Empire. These three empires often fought, and the structure was similar to a tripartite confrontation. Following them were 11 kingdoms, countless duchies, and 3 major city-states. The free city-states, lost city-states, and mercenary city-states. The city-states were small dragon-rearing families that existed in the form of mercenaries. They were mainly used to fight against the noble Frost Empire, which was the only empire that liked to plunder small countries. Due to the distance and the unexpected decline of the magic civilization, the expansion of the empire became more difficult. Otherwise, there would have been a talented and bold dragon knight who could unify the legendary continent in the past few thousand years. So, what do you think about the destruction of the ancient Moon Empire? I'm not sure, but according to my persistent excavation of ancient ruins for many years, I can deduce that during the golden age of the Moon Empire, there was suddenly a great catastrophe. From then on, the entire magic civilization collapsed overnight, and the Night Knights developed in the ruins. Have you heard of the Malfa continent? You know about the Malfa continent too? Ryder could not help but think highly of List. Yes, there is indeed a Malfa continent that is similar to the legendary continent. In ancient times, there were close contacts between the two continents. The mages of the Malfa continent were unified, and it was called the Sun Empire. What was the end of the Sun Empire? It's hard to say, but my personal deduction is that the Sun Empire collapsed at the same time as the Moon Empire. There was also a civilization in the sea in the past. It was a civilization ruled by mermaids. In some of the ruins that I excavated, there are sea objects and sky ships. Sky ships? List raises eyebrows. Flying ships that traveled to and from the Devil's Sea. The humans of the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire did not like to take ordinary ships. They always flew in the sky, side by side with the dragons. Ryder was very emotional. To every mage, the magic civilization of the ancient times was an ideal country. How much do you know about dragons? Of course, I have done a lot of research on these magical creatures. They are the embodiment of the limit of magic power, and they represent the embodiment of some kind of truth. As far as I know, there should be 36 types of gemstone dragons, 72 types of metal dragons, 8 types of elemental dragons, 5 types of holy dragons, and 3 types of evil dragons. But I do not know the specific types. You know about evil dragons? List's interest was piqued. What do you know about them? Ryder was stunned. So your majesty also knows about evil dragons. That can't be. This is a desolate countryside. Small kingdoms like Eagle, Steel Ridge, and Furnace Castle should not have any news about evil dragons. Yes, it must be Her Excellency Achilles who taught you. I did not expect her to be so knowledgeable at such a young age. These words did not sound very pleasing to List's ears. He was the one who taught Qi, not the other way around. He was the widely recognized scholar of the Fire Kingdom's Guild of Magic. Chapter 1031. He only cursed silently. List still had self-awareness. His half-baked knowledge and the so-called title of erudite were all given face by everyone. Now, Qi was the most knowledgeable person in the Fire Kingdom, especially when it came to magic. List could not understand some of the general principles. They were too profound. This was also the reason why he didn't kill Laird Truth. There was some cutting-edge knowledge that only Laird could comprehend. Kinley Truth and Crazy Truth, the two vice presidents of the Magic Guild, were limited by their level of training. Most of the time, they could not keep up with the Qi. As for the seven mermaids, they were all supernatural creatures, but their magic knowledge was not as good as human magicians. Right now, Qi is disgusted with you because you participated in my assassination. So, your job is to compile the encyclopedia. When you get used to life in the Fire Kingdom, I will arrange for you to participate in Qi's research. Sure, but when do you plan to build a mage tower for me, Your Majesty? He had not even started work yet, and he was already asking for treatment. List waved his hand. There's no rush for the mage tower. With my current knowledge of architecture, it's only a matter of time before I build a spectacular building. Once my palace and palace are built, it will be your turn to build the mage tower. He still needed some time to judge Laird's character. It was impossible to completely trust a person after just a few words. Laird Truth could not deny this. Compiling the encyclopedia is indeed a good idea, but I don't have the patience to do it myself. You'll have to help me find a group of great magicians to be my assistants. I'm only willing to provide oral accounts. Also, prepare a laboratory for me. I want to write magic lessons and teach them to His Excellency Achilles Rhodes. That's easy, but there's one more thing we need to talk about. How much do you know about the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow? Louis Shadow is the leader of the Shadow Incarnations, one of Emperor Jupiter's trump cards. I don't know much about his background, but I heard that he successfully assassinated the Dragon Knight of a small country twice. He is the highest level of the Shadow Incarnations, above Shadowless. Shallow Shadow corresponded to the elite Earth Knight. Deep Shadow corresponded to the ordinary Sky Knight. Shadowless corresponded to the perfected Sky Knight. Louis Shadow was the King of Shadows, reaching the level of Dragon Knight and Magic Shooter. Laird suddenly thought of something and added, the reason Louis was able to become the King of Shadows should have something to do with Great Emperor Jupiter's Dark Dragon. This Dark Dragon was inherited from the previous Great Emperor. Great Emperor Jupiter is also nurturing his grandson in hopes that he can inherit the Dark Dragon. The Dark Dragon is related to the Shadow King. Could it be that Shadow Incarnation is a cultivation system similar to the Light Demon Swordsman or Fire Demon Swordsman? Puzzled, List stood and left. He urgently needed to deal with some necessary work, such as training and familiarizing himself with the dragons. Other than dragons that had perfected their soul imprint, the other dragons would become rusty if they did not familiarize themselves with each other. ZT Elf himself, King Dragons, Elf said, Elf King is dragon is, to was with spirits. The number of big sprites skyrocketed, and List didn't know what to name them. In the end, he followed the custom of the dragon-raising family and didn't even give the big sprites names. He can't take care of the elves. List didn't know what to call them. The 3 dragon elves at home don't have time to bond. Even the most unusual thorn sprite, Ella, is basically left to fend for herself. Fortunately, Ella is now learning management and working hard to play the role of Fire Castle's elven butler. When a wheat sprite worm failed to evolve, I was sad for several days. Now, a few sprite worms die every month, but it's hard to even sigh. List looked at Ella, who was educating the new elf, with a faint sigh at the corner of his mouth. The main reason was that his rise was too wild, and his mentality and strength had not been perfectly coordinated. Whoa, do you understand? Ella finished, reprimanding the sprites with her hands on her waist. She was wearing a super small frack abier, which made her look a little nondescript. The elves looked at each other and then dispersed. No one responded to Ella at all. Ella was so angry that she shouted, "Wow!" Elves were never social creatures. Their personalities were relatively independent, so they were much less obedient and easily immersed in their own world. For example, the corn sprite Mickey counted corn kernels every day as a little sprite. He still counted corn kernels every day as a big sprite, striving to count from 1 to 100. When he counted to 100, he might be able to evolve into a dragon elf. Before List could complete a round of dragon training, the King of Shadows, Lewis Shadow, who was stared at by his double wrath, had woken up from his coma. He was different from Magister Laird Truth because his internal organs were attacked by List's violent flames, and he almost died. Therefore, after waking up, he was still on the verge of death and would faint at any time. Lewis Shadow, do you understand your current situation? List personally interrogated the King of Shadows. He was still very curious about the Shadow incarnation. How did you evade my assassination? Lewis did not answer, but asked instead. He was already out of breath after saying a few words. I found that you are still a little unconscious and do not understand your current situation. No, you are not human, definitely not. I clearly stabbed your heart and felt the sweet sound of your heart bursting. Ridiculous. From the beginning, Lewis had put on a posture of refusing to cooperate. No matter how List interrogated him, he just repeatedly said, "List is not human. You are already dead. I will not fail the assassination," and so on. It was clear that he would not cooperate. This made List very angry. It was no longer double wrath, but triple wrath. However, Lewis could not be beaten now. His body was too weak and could be beaten to death at any time. Therefore, List forced himself to calm down, and then a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind. Lewis is so uncooperative. If he is not unparalleled in his loyalty, then he does not dare to speak nonsense. Combined with what Laird Truth had said before, that the King of Shadows might be related to the Dark Dragon, this made List even more certain that Lewis was a servant of the Dark Dragon. Unlike Paris, who could train independently as a light magic swordsman, Lewis might not be able to escape the control of the Dark Dragon. You do not want to speak? Since you want to waste time with me, I will allow you to do so. List stood up and left the dungeon. He ordered the magician with healing abilities heal his body as soon as possible. He then handed the interrogation to the person in charge of the dungeon. When his body can take it, torture him every day. He does not need to speak. Just make sure he does not die. Your Majesty, please rest assured. I may not be good at interrogating, but I am very good at torturing prisoners. This person in charge of the dungeon was the Earl Sky Knight. He had volunteered to manage the dungeon so that he could torture mortals. One could say that he was a pervert. After sending List off, the person in charge came to the cell with a smile and stared at Lewis Ing with an indescribable gaze, sending shivers down his spine. Then he cackled, "You have to get well soon." Chapter 1032. In the end, they were unable to pry open Lewis Shadow's mouth. The tortured King of Shadows never revealed any information about the Frost Empire or the Shadow Incarnation. This was the most strong-willed person List had ever seen. Hence, he could only let the prison guards torture the King of Shadows, Lewis Shadow, until he was half dead. He then tried to invite Laird Truth to see if he could use soul magic to search Lewis' memories. Unfortunately, there was no such magic. Even a magic shooter who had lived for many years could not do this. In the end, Lewis Shadow's soul collapsed and his body decomposed, returning to the basic material elements between heaven and earth. At the same time, the smoke mission was finally completed. Mission completed. Reward: the Bearskin Man's Cultivation Manual. To be honest, this mission puzzled List. According to the mission reward, when Pylov and his son confessed a month ago, the Bearskin Man's Cultivation Manual was already in his hands. Even if the mission was not completed, it should have been changed. However, it had been delayed until now. He had to deal with Pylov and his son, magic shooter Laird Truth, and the King of Shadows, Lewis Shadow. Only then did he receive the mission reward. Why is this happening? Did something happen to the smoke mission? Or did the power of fate deviate due to excessive consumption? This question did not bother him for long, because the new mission content had vaguely explained what had happened to the smoke mission. Quest 202 Choices of Fate. You have been guided in predicted time and time again. You have grown from a small feudal lord in the countryside to the ruler of a country. In the time that the Fire Kingdom is about to be established, perhaps it is time for you to consider some more profound questions. Please reach the barrier. Reward. Fate's favor. Fate's favor. It seems that the smoke mission is changing. List frowned and thought, is this change good or bad? According to the content of the reward, it should be a good change. Then what was I before? What is my relationship with fate? Or is the power of fate that I got before just a trial version, and now it's giving me the official version? Fate's favor was obviously not just a title. It was more like a higher level of control over the power of fate. According to his understanding, he had been making choices and changing fate over the past few years, thus strengthening the power of fate and gradually forming the fate's favor. If the smoke dragon's power was left on him after its death, then now, this power had taken root and was even ready to start breeding a new smoke dragon. Is that so? For the time being, List could not be sure. He could only wait for the completion of this quest and receive the blessing of fate before he could understand it. So, what I need to do now is to keep training hard and then touch the rampart. The rampart is the realm above the Dragon Knight that Achi mentioned. Above the Dragon Knight was breaking through the barrier and becoming a barrier knight. Currently, the only clue to breaking the barrier was the slumbering Weave Dragon. List had already seen the Weave Dragon twice. The first was the experiment of tearing apart a natural node, allowing the formless Dragon Bard to temporarily enter adulthood, allowing him to spy on the Weave Dragon's terrifying form. The second time was when the Scepter of Time activated its ability to reflect time, allowing him to see a possible scene in the future. Within it was a pair of terrifying eyes. He did not know why, but he was sure that they were the eyes of the Weave Dragon. It was probably because, in his knowledge, only the Weave Dragon could have such eyes. The barrier is just a concept for now. Even Achi hasn't figured it out yet. So how am I supposed to touch it? Don't tell me I have to get Achi to help the formless Dragon Bard enter adulthood again, and then secretly spy on the Weave Dragon to discover information about the barrier? Indeed, the Weave Dragon was a very good observation material. However, the Weave Dragon's powerful strength traversed the boundaries of the material world. If it were to be alarmed by List's spying, wouldn't something terrible happen? With the Weave Dragon's strength, it shouldn't be difficult for it to trample me to death, right? List rarely felt guilty. Recently, he had become so arrogant that he did not even care about the Empire. However, he still had a deep fear of the Weave Dragon, and it was this fear that prevented him from exploding. This was because he understood that even the Holy Dragon Knight was not invincible. There were still many existences that could harm him. Not to mention the Weave Dragon, there was still the Cursed Dragon. That inconceivable power of corruption was not something he could resist. Along with the Cursed Dragon, there was also the Silent Dragon and the Shadow Dragon. They were all unknown, powerful existences, and their strength was definitely not weaker than the Holy Dragon. Even if these dragons did not cause trouble for him for no reason, he could not be too arrogant. Although the Frost Empire's assassination attempt had been broken, the Shadow King's elusive assassination method still made him vigilant. In this magical world, even the Dragon Knight was not safe. It's better to keep a low profile and focus on developing the Fire Kingdom. I'll ride a few more dragons. I wonder if I can ride the Light Dragon from Maple Mountain in the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf. I have a feeling that once light attribute magic is developed, it will be able to restrain assassins like the Shadow Incarnation. What left a deep impression on him was Laird Truth's ability to seal space with the help of the Light of Imprisonment Staff. That was a method of using light attribute magic to the extreme. This type of light could penetrate all space and see through everything. If only he had the light dragon by his side. The Shadow King would not have a chance to get close at all. I have 2 dragon soul fruits now. When I thoroughly study the emerald dragon's hind leg, I should be able to continue to cultivate the soul fruit tree and provide an endless supply of dragon's soul fruits. I can use 1 on the light dragon. In fact, there was still news about several elemental dragons. Their general range of activities was already known, but there was not much value in developing them for the time being. For example, the Wind Dragon, Ice Dragon, and Earth Dragon, there was not much point in developing them. Even the little Water Dragon in List's body was not very useful. These elemental dragons belonged to the evil dragon sequence. They did not produce and consumed a lot of resources. List could not raise too many of them. Developing the light dragon was also to protect his own safety. As if speaking of the devil, List just remembered that the little water dragon was still in his body. On the first day of August, the little water dragon unexpectedly called out to him. Yo! It had stayed in List's kidneys long enough. Now it wanted to walk out of his body and see the outside world. In an open area, List waited for the little water dragon to come out. A moment later, the water attribute dragon supreme demon spewed out of his body and turned into a wave floating in the air. The wave quickly exploded into a downpour, and when the raindrops fell to the ground, a light blue little dragon was flapping its wings and looking at List. It was 10 meters long and had a wingspan of 10 meters. It had a slim figure and beautiful scales. Every part of it showed a sense of beauty, including its unusually beautiful dragon head. However, the evil color in its eyes was comparable to Leo's. Yo! It glanced at List, flapped its wings, and charged into the sky. When List's eyes were about to lose sight of it, it swooped down at high speed. It tossed back and forth very satisfied. Only when it was tired did it land in front of List again. It opened its mouth and let out yo, yo sounds. This was to ask List for food. Chapter 1033. Wouter, will you let me ride you? List tried to ride on the back of the little water dragon, but all he got was a fierce stare from the little water dragon. Even though List had enjoyed so many magical feasts in List's body, it still refused to be ridden by List. Yo-ho! It let out a slightly childish cry to express its determination. You really have the temperament of an evil dragon, Wouter. You are as resistant as Leo was back then. But unfortunately, when Leo met me, I was just a sky knight. And now, I'm a powerful dragon knight, and I have the phoenix incarnation. List looked at the little water dragon and shook his head to express his regret. Walter was the name he came up with for the little water dragon. In English, water was water. List was too lazy to waste his brain cells. At the moment the little water dragon was born, he announced its name. Whether it accepted it or not, Walter would be with it for the rest of its life. Yo-ho! Upon hearing the name Leo, Wouter's neck shrank, but quickly raised its head and continued to express its determination. This was an elemental dragon. All elemental dragons were listed as evil dragons because of their personalities. Although the gem dragon and the metal dragon looked down on humans, their personalities were still considered peaceful. As long as a human was recognized, they would have a chance to have a spiritual battle. However, this was not the case for the elemental dragon. The negative emotions in its heart were constantly growing, and there was no way it could be reformed or recognized. So, no matter what, you still have to speak with your strength. Wouter, I don't care about your current strength. List took out a magic potion and stuffed it into the little water dragon. The little water dragon happily swallowed the potion. What greeted it was List, who had already gathered his dragon combat energy and quickly entered a battle stance. He could win the aluminum dragon's spiritual battle without relying on the dragon soul fruit. He was no longer afraid of the spiritual battle, so he didn't need to use the dragon's soul fruit. After all, he was always shrouded in the power of fate, which originated from the smoke dragon. The emerald dragon, the source of the dragon's soul fruit, was also a holy dragon. Huh, Squatting down, Xianxia soared into the sky. He executed half of the phoenix incarnation and materialized a pair of wings on his back. It went straight for the little water dragon, Walter. Its speed was so fast that it could be said to be instantaneous. It wasn't something a newborn water dragon could compare to. He was about to reach its back. The little water dragon suddenly twisted its body, its eyes filled with an evil light. It opened its mouth and spat out a pale blue stream of dragon breath. Compared to Leo's high-temperature flame dragon breath, its dragon breath looked like a water gun. However, in the next moment, List realized the miraculous effect of the water dragon's dragon breath. It didn't disperse. Instead, it condensed into water snakes that attacked List. Insignificant skill. List casually pulled out the crystal blade fragment. Instantly, countless flames burst out from the blade, ruthlessly smashing the water snakes one by one. The broken crystal blade was a weapon obtained from the King of Shadows. The result of the Book of Knowledge's appraisal was elven blood, chromium dragon bone, crystal, magic piercing. According to the description, as well as his and Achi's research, the main body of the crystal blade fragment was a piece of dragon bone from a chromium dragon. It was soaked in elven blood, most likely from a big elf. In addition, a large number of crystals were used as decoration. Through the special Iron Knight technique, the crystals and the chromium dragon bone were integrated into one, making it indestructible. To create such a big sword that looked like it was pieced together by many broken crystals. Its nature was magic piercing. It had a very strong piercing effect on magic, especially defensive magic. For example, a magician's water wave shield or a knight's magic equipment were all within the range of magic piercing. The King of Shadows must have relied on this weapon to successfully assassinate the two-dragon knight. After all, under the powerful magic piercing effect, even List couldn't defend against it. If he couldn't transform into a phoenix, his heart would have been pierced and he would have died. Now that it had become List's weapon, it was given the name Crystal Blade Fragment. As soon as it was used, it showed a strong effect. The water snake formed by Little Water Dragon, Wout's dragon breath, couldn't resist the broken crystal blade. After defeating Walter's attack with one move, List took the opportunity to rush to Walter's back. He found a spot on the dragon fawn platform and was about to sit down. Of course, Walter was unwilling. It twisted its body and flapped its wings wildly. Its tail was like a whip as it lashed at List. The wind howled. List had to dodge the tail whip. Roar! Walter's attack succeeded. It immediately flapped its wings and fled. However, it had just been born and was too weak. List flapped his phoenix wings effortlessly and caught up with it in a flash. After defeating its dragon breath again, he finally took the opportunity to sit on the dragon fawn platform. I'm so strong now. Young dragons are no different from normal World of Warcraft in front of me. As he sat down, he lamented. Then, his vision was flooded by an endless ocean. He had arrived in a world of water. This was undoubtedly the spiritual world of Walter. Roar! A thunderous roar jolted List out of his thoughts. He found that the little water dragon, Walter, had turned into a huge and ferocious adult water dragon. It was no longer the beautiful and delicate appearance it had when it was young. Instead, it was bloated, wrinkled, and thorny. After losing its beauty, its strength had greatly increased. It stared at List wantonly, opened its mouth, and sneered silently. Through the faint spiritual connection, List could understand what Walter was saying. It was telling List that the tables had turned. It was now its turn to be the banker. The last dragon that thought so was a 50-year-old aluminum dragon. Do you know what it's doing now? It's working for me, escorting a group of knight migrating to the Fire Kingdom. List stood in the water without a hint of discomfort. The spiritual world was very strange. It was a world that involved both reality and illusion. It was a dragon's mental space. Dragons were the most powerful existence in the spiritual world. Humans, on the other hand, were in absolute disadvantage in spiritual battles. However, List was not included in this. The trump cards he had in reality were directly reflected in the spiritual world. The fog of fate that shrouded his body, the phoenix transformation that he could use at any time, and the weapons in his hands could all be reflected in the spiritual world. Now, in a world of water, he had another trump card, the mermaid's heart contract, which allowed him to swim freely in the water. So, he held the crystal breaker blade with both hands and looked at the approaching water dragon without fear. In the spiritual world, there is no dragon knight stronger than me. Roar. Walter was confused when it saw List's smooth posture. It knew that humans could not survive in the water. That was why it was invincible in the spiritual world. It did not expect to meet a human who could breathe freely in the water. The doubt only lasted for a moment before it discarded the thought. Its eyes flashed with an evil glint as it pounced at List. Although it was born from List's body, that did not stop it from ruthlessly defeating him. After all, how could an ant ride on the noble body of a water dragon? Chapter 1034. Clang. The sound of the sword moving in the water was very pleasing to the ear. Although the shape of the broken crystal blade was unique, it had a very rhythmic arrangement and structure. When it was swung in the air, it could roll up air currents silently, and when it was swung in the water, it could make a pleasant friction sound. With a slash of the sword, the super demonic dragon combat energy of the fire element shone brightly even in the water. It was like a huge flaming knife that slammed into the water dragon, Walter. There was a splashing sound. The scales on Walter's body were instantly split open by the super demonic dragon combat energy, leaving a charred wound. At the same time that Walter was angry, he was also terrified. He never thought that List would be able to hurt him in such an environment. Moreover, it seemed that List's strength had not declined. Instead, it had skyrocketed, becoming stronger and more ferocious than in reality. I've said it before, with your young IQ, you won't understand my strength. Walter stopped struggling pointlessly. Holding the broken crystal blade, the smoke turned into a cloak that rippled behind him. List said calmly, I nurtured you from the wreckage, and this is the bond between us that can never be broken. Walter's dragon eyes emitted a faint blue light, and he rushed over again, accompanied by a powerful dragon breath. These dragon breaths instantly turned into countless giant sea snakes, entangling List. Compared to the dragon breath in reality, its current dragon breath could be said to be powerful. The countless water snakes danced, and the scene alone was enough to make one's scalp tingle. However, under the smoke-enhanced broken crystal blade, no matter how strong the giant snakes were, they would just be cannon fodder. The flames turned into a sea of fire, quickly burning and evaporating every giant dragon breath snake. They spun and jumped, stirring up a fire tornado in the sea, heading straight for the water dragon, Walter. The battle was hardy. In the end, with his powerful strength, List killed the water dragon. The broken crystal blade was stained with the super demonic dragon's blood, and he announced the victory of this spiritual battle. He took the spiritual battle seriously without the help of the mystical dragon's soul fruit. This was the second time he had won openly, and it was against an elemental dragon, an evil dragon's spiritual world. The next moment, the bubbles in front of him dissipated, and a brand new water dragon was floating in front of him. It lowered its head and nudged List, indicating for List to ride on its dragon fawn platform. As long as he defeated the dragon in the spiritual battle, it would be equivalent to registering his marriage. List put away the shattered crystal blade, smiled slightly, and leaped onto the dragon fawn platform. Then he instantly completed the spirit as one link and rode the water dragon up from the water. After flying for an unknown period of time, he finally leaped out of the water, creating countless splashes as he flew straight up. The next moment, his vision changed. He was riding on the young water dragon, Wouter, and was flying crookedly in the sky. His vision was not new, and it was similar to a human's vision. Ouch! Walter let out an angry roar. Although it had accepted its fate, it was not satisfied. Don't be impatient. After a while, you will understand how lucky you are to follow me. List touched the scales on its neck. Everything was over. The dragon nest of the small water dragon, Walter, was temporarily arranged in the only sea city of the Fire Kingdom, Mermaid City. It was located near the mouth of the Whirlpool River, not far from Estuary City. It was the settlement of the clownfish race and the resting place of the mermaids. It would be opened up into an underwater breeding garden. Most of the elves searched by the mermaids were arranged near Mermaid City. The original marine breeding industry around Black Horse Island was also gradually moving here. For example, the artificial breeding of black giant clams, pink conches, and golden clams have been completely handed over to the clownfish race. Kelp, giant algae, and other marine plants were also cultivated here on a large scale. The giant algae spirit, Parker, had moved from the giant algae forest of Black Horse Island and owned a top-notch luxury insect house in Mermaid City. The handsome Parker likes life here. It would be better if these ugly toadfish could stay away from me. At this time, Parker was lying on a giant algae leaf, looking at the ugly fish swimming around harvesting giant algae. From time to time, he would take a little jade powder from his body and put it in his mouth. Suddenly, he looked at the distant sea. Well, the equally handsome List is here. He hasn't come to see me for a long time. I don't know which fairy has bewitched him. Only the handsome Parker has always loved me. No one in this world will be really good to you except yourself. While muttering to himself, List had rushed over on the small water dragon, Walter. The water dragon existed in a very special way. Its body was like a layer of air attached to it, completely isolated from the sea. He couldn't help but think of the colorful whale Rose he left on Black Horse Island. Rose had a magic called colorful breathing membrane, which was also amazing. List, who was riding Walter, also had a layer of air attached to his body and breathed freely. Moreover, Walter's movements in the water were more agile and faster than when he was flying in the sky. Even the pressure of the deep sea had no effect on him. However, this was to be expected. After all, if mermaids could swim in the sea, how could an even more magical water dragon not be able to? Also, the water dragon's vision was not affected at all in the dark deep sea. It could see a special light to distinguish the underwater world. This was something mermaids could not do. Once it merged with the magic eye, there was no telling what kind of magical changes would happen. Walter stopped at the edge of the new kelp forest that had not yet fully grown. At this time, Parker, who was called by List, had already slowly swam over. He saw Walter. Such a water dragon gave him a very strange shock. In fact, he had seen dragons before. List had let him feel several dragons. However, Parker had no feelings for these dragons. He even felt a little disgusted. He hated the arrogant temperament of dragons. Only I, Parker, am the most handsome. Dragons can't compare at all. But at this moment, Parker realized that he had fallen in love with the little water dragon, Walter, the first time he laid eyes on it. Oh my God, List, what did you bring? It's so perfect. Handsome Parker likes it. Parker involuntarily flew over and kept circling around the little water dragon Walter. Walter blew a bubble at Parker, trying to get rid of the sharp-toothed little thing like he was trying to get rid of Fly. Parker was blown a few times, but he quickly swam over and flew up and down. List, I like it. Handsome Parker likes it. I can feel that you like it, Parker. In fact, I brought the little water dragon Walter here to see if you like it. List laughed. This was also his favorite moment. Parker liked Walter, which meant that it was finally on the verge of evolution. Great elves only liked dragons that were compatible with them. Only such dragons could they evolve. Luckily, Parker ran into Walter at that moment. From now on, Fish City will be Walter's dragon nest. Parker, you must get along well with Walter. No one is allowed to bully the other. Haha, handsome Parker will take good care of this little cutie. Don't worry, List. Parker patted his little chest and shouted. What he said made List's face darken. Don't worry, Go. The little water dragon, Wouter, was even more irritated and let out a roar. It was very disgusted with this flea-like little thing. I'm a noble dragon, damn flea. Please remember this book's original domain name. Nine Heavens Godly Emperor mobile version website. Chapter 1035. Wouter was not satisfied, but since List had already made up his mind and gave him a batch of potions as a reward, he could only accept the fact that he had to keep Parker, the little flea, company. Little cutie, I'll take good care of you. Handsome Parker will like you as much as he likes himself. The giant seaweed elf grinned with a mouth full of sharp teeth. Yo-ho! Wouter glared and tried to intimidate Parker. If it weren't for the elven contract, Parker would be a handsome great elf that even List wouldn't think much of. How would he care about Walter's glare? He happily flew to Wouter's body and caressed his scales, feeling the aura of a water dragon. What a cute water dragon, Wouter. Handsome Parker likes you. Yo-ho! The little water dragon raised its head in anger and despair. In fact, it could not feel Parker's presence at all. The great elf was too small for it. However, when it closed its eyes, its mind was filled with Parker's face, which made it hysterical. Therefore, it could only swallow potions to divert its attention. Yo-ho! It told List, who was watching from the side, that the potion supply must be doubled, or it would rebel. List maintained his smile and ignored the little water dragon. Your Majesty, you are indeed a great human king who is favored by the gods. Is this a water dragon? What a wonderful creature. I can feel the powerful and oppressive supreme magic from it, the mermaid Marquis Wuxia said after rushing over. After all, dragons represent the pinnacle of power. From now on, little water dragon Wouter will use Mermaid City as his dragon nest. Wuxia, I'll leave the design of the dragon nest to you. Rest assured, Your Majesty, it is the fortune of all mermaids to be able to invite a dragon to live in Mermaid City. When feeding little water dragon Wouter, you have to control the clowns. Wouter is different from Marta the mountain copper dragon. It's an evil dragon with a bad temper. I'll control the clowns. Even if they are eaten by Wouter, it's not a big deal. With the source of energy potion, these clowns are producing little fish clowns every day. Its fertility is so strong that it seems to have returned to the sea before it was polluted by the cursed dragon. At that time, it was said that a large number of clowns were organized to fight each other every year to control the number of clowns. Clowns belonged to an intelligent race, but in the eyes of the mermaids, these clowns were a group of lowly slaves that could reproduce. They did not have any dignity that an intelligent race should have. In fact, it was the same for the Nagas. In the eyes of the mermaids, the Nagas were an inferior race. Mermaids were only friendly to humans. They believed that the appearance of humans represented a higher civilization. Judging people by their appearance had always been the hobby of highly intelligent races. At this moment, when he saw the small water dragon, Wuxia's eyes were also dazzled, and he couldn't wait to pounce over and touch it. This made Walter roar again and again. He really wanted to eat this mermaid, thinking that she was a great tonic. He left the little water dragon behind. List also handed over the exploration of the Stronghold Knight to Wuxia. He did not have any clues at the moment, so he could only hope that Wuxia could make some discoveries. Subsequently, he rode on an invisible dragon bard and directly tore through the material boundary. He came to the wilderness south of the Solid Land, which was the original habitat of the aluminum dragon. There was a brass mine here that could not be mined for the time being. Of course, he was not here to mine, nor was he here to join the migration team. Instead, he was going to set off for the fertile land and try to find Nimia, the great lion. As for the light dragon that was scheduled, he had no plans to ride it for the time being. An adult light dragon was not easy to deal with, and the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf was located between the Eagle Kingdom and the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. It was easy to be exposed if he went to snatch the light dragon. It was not a good idea to move without being prepared. The light dragon was there, and no one was fighting for it. He could ride it at any time. He ordered the light dragon to guard against assassinations. However, Great Emperor Jupiter knew that if the assassination failed, he would not let it go, according to what Lair Truth said. He would definitely get back at him. However, the King of Shadows was already dead. The magic shooter defected to the Fire Kingdom, and the broken crystal blade that he brought with him became List's sword. The mirror-like equipment that could see through supreme magic naturally fell into List's hands. The mirror was called the Magic Weaving Compass. It could weave the tracks of the surrounding supreme magic onto the compass. It was a very powerful detection artifact, especially effective against dragons. The other equipment that could seal space, the imprisonment light magic staff, had been destroyed. It could be said that great Emperor Jupiter originally sent people to assassinate List with absolute confidence. Now, he had suffered a double loss and even lost his underwear. He would definitely not send people to assassinate List in a short period of time. It was not easy to gather such a luxurious assassination lineup. In short, List was very safe during this period of time. He was invincible in the northeast corner of the legendary continent. As long as he kept a low profile, no one could hurt him. The Fertile Land still has to fly for more than 1,000 kilometers to the south. I hope Xianxia, the great lion, is not hiding in the mud and sleeping during this period. Otherwise, it will not be easy to find it. However, it turned out to be a prophecy. The power of fate did not choose to favor him these few days. After searching for 3 days and 3 nights in the Fertile Land, he did not find any signs of supreme magic. There were also no signs of high magic. If Xianxia, the great lion, did not leave the Fertile Land, then it must be sleeping in the mud. High-level dragons and creatures like World of Warcraft did not come out to hunt every day. Sometimes, it was common for them to sleep for 10 days or half a month. However, List did not have time to waste here. After searching for 3 days and not finding anything, he directly tore open the material boundary and traveled back to the territory. As soon as he returned to the territory, there was good news. When Xianxia was preparing to start her research on the stronghold, she unexpectedly developed another special magical result. A magical contract designed according to the Awe of the Phoenix. This kind of contract was originally proposed by List. He hoped to build a bridge between the night and the World of Warcraft mount. Xianxia organized a group of great magicians to research this direction. At first, she did not have any expectations, but she unexpectedly received a reward. Brother, this kind of contract has been verified by the night. It can indeed establish a spiritual connection between the night and World of Warcraft. Their souls can be connected through a special frequency. Although the close spiritual connection is a little vague, the night and World of Warcraft can influence each other. Similar to the knight and the elf? It's somewhat similar, but the power of the contract is a little weaker because it is not mandatory. The World of Warcraft must be familiar with the knight before the contract can be established. If the World of Warcraft resists, the contract will be broken. In addition, magicians can also communicate with the World of Warcraft through the contract. Even magicians can do it? Then is it applicable to all World of Warcraft? It must be a World of Warcraft with a certain level of intelligence. If it is an insect-type World of Warcraft with no intelligence, it will be very difficult to form a contract. The knight and insect-type World of Warcraft can't get used to each other. No matter how well you treat insect-type World of Warcraft, you won't be able to exchange feelings for insect-type World of Warcraft, so you won't be able to form a contract. Although it was not applicable to all World of Warcraft, List rubbed his chin and gave full affirmation to this research result. It will have a very wide range of applications. In that case, let's call this contract Beast Taming Contract. With this contract, it won't be difficult for the knight to tame World of Warcraft as his mount. It was very fitting and elegant. Chapter 1037. In the blink of an eye, it was already September. D. Maria Rainflower Stone arrived at the Soul Fortress through the Heart Reed teleportation formation. The Soul Island, where the Soul Fortress was located, had become a bustling port. A large number of ships were docked there, and countless serfs were loading and unloading goods. The products of Blazing Island were sent to Iron and Steel Ridge, Eagle Country, and other countries, and foreign resources were also gathered at Blazing Island. However, there were strict quarantine standards for goods going in and out to prevent rats and other spies from sneaking in. What a great miracle no matter how many times I transmigrate. Di Maria looked at the pitch-black magic door behind him and sighed silently. At the thought of leaving Blazing Island for this mission, he felt a little conflicted. As the former Marquis of Wildwave, he was born in the Kingdom of Eagle and had once chatted merrily with the Eagle King, Adonis Moonlight Silver. Now that he had been captured, he had sought refuge with the Fire Kingdom and was appointed as the vice-chairman of the Development Committee. This meant that he had control over the entire kingdom. This feeling was far better than in the past. But now, he was going to Sapphire Duchy in the name of the Fire Kingdom's envoy to discuss with Sapphire Duke Anthony Sapphire about this year's development order. According to last year's rules, the Sapphire Dragon would take the lead and invade the Eagle Kingdom to plunder its population. Currently, the demoted Sapphire Duchy was still a vassal state of the Steel and Iron Ridge Kingdom. With such a title, the expansion order was just like in previous years. Moreover, there was a good excuse to dispatch the Sapphire Dragon. When the Eagle Kingdom launched a dragon-slaying war against the Sapphire Dragon, could it be that the Sapphire Duchy was not allowed to retaliate? However, anyone with a discerning eye would know that the Fire Kingdom was behind this development order. This was List's revenge. King Adonis, I can only say my apologies. The Yuhua Stone family could not obtain the protection of the Eagle Kingdom. For the sake of the family's interests, we could only choose to lean towards the Fire Kingdom. His Majesty List has great talent and bold vision, and his strength is shocking. In the future, the Yuhua Stone family will only become stronger. Putting aside the little bit of guilt in his heart, Di Maria had already adjusted his state of mind when he took the boat to Blue Dragon Island. Right now, he was a knight of the Fire Kingdom. He only served his family, only served the Fire Kingdom. Florence, wind-chasing arrow, stood in front of the magic gate of Xianxia teleportation magic circle, waiting with the crowd. Today, the migrating knight from the Grey Iron Duchy had finally trudged over from the endless wilderness and was resting in Realgar City. Piero Greyiron and the other nobles would cross the teleportation circle today and arrive at Jadestone City. They would officially join the Fire Kingdom and become the followers of List, the Fire King. The welcoming party was led by Lee William Tulip. This middle-aged noble, who currently only held the title of Marquis, was one of the few top-notch nobles in the Fire Kingdom. He was the father of the king. He had already become a domain knight, an existence second only to the Dragon Knight. There were those who envied Lee William, those who envied him, and those who disdained him. Many people believed that Lee William had been basking in the glory of his son. Otherwise, he would only have been a sword saint and an earl. How could he have had such a glorious moment? However, Lee William did not care about these jealous words at all. If he was so capable, he should have had a powerful son too. Florence glanced at Lee William. He was not jealous or envious. He was about to become a perfect Sky Knight, and he also had the Domain Knight training manual. The Grey Iron Duchy and the Eagle Royal family were close friends, so they naturally had the Domain Knight training manual. Duke Piero's talent was limited and he could not cultivate, but Florence was full of confidence. In the future, he was destined to become a Domain Knight. With the rise of the Fire Kingdom, he would be conferred the title of Duke if he made great achievements. The rise of a brand new kingdom will inevitably have to compete with the original 3 kingdoms for resources. I have plenty of opportunities to make contributions. Even if I can't grasp the opportunity to make contributions, I can still inherit my father's title and become a duke. But I hope to become a duke myself. He did not have much work to do on Blazing Island, so he had many opportunities to travel around. What he heard the most here was not the gossip among the nobles, but the discussion of military achievements and the worship of List. At the age of 16, he was still a trainee knight. People called him a loser, and he was assigned to the most remote town in the country. However, at the age of 18, List had already become a Sky Knight and a Dragon Knight not long after. Later, he rose to power in the Battle of Dragon, slaying on the sea. Then, in the second Battle of Dragon Slaying, as a Holy Dragon Knight, he fought against 5 dragons and 2 Dragon Knights of the Eagle Kingdom alone. He killed a dragon knight and took away the gray iron dragon. It shocked the three kingdoms. Now, List was only 21 years old, but he had 7 dragons, including the invisible dragon, the fire dragon, the light green gem dragon, the gray iron dragon, the orichalcum dragon, the aluminum dragon, and the bone dragon. He did not know that List had also obtained a new water dragon, so he had 8 dragons. In this era, the most legendary and dazzling one was List. Everyone knew that his rise was unstoppable. Therefore, being able to follow behind List meant that they were about to make a fortune, and that great nobles would spring up one after another like bamboo shoots after the rain. My starting point is far higher than His Majesty List. Although I am not blessed by the glory of the night like the Son of Glory, I also have to rely on my own efforts to create a family, instead of inheriting my father's title, just as he was in a trance. Suddenly, he heard someone shouting, "It's coming!" Florence suddenly came back to his senses and looked up at the dark magic door. The deep blue vortex emerged, and then a loud dragon roar came from it. In the next moment, a tall silver-white figure rushed out of the magic door. Under the illumination of the sun, it shone with silver light. It was the aluminum dragon that he had lost in the Battle of Seoul. It had now become one of List's mounts, and had escorted the night migration team all the way to Flame Island. After rushing out of the Xianxia teleportation array, the aluminum dragon left without looking back, flying into the sky and disappearing. It heard List call and went to the dragon nest that List was arranging for it. The appearance of the aluminum dragon caused a commotion among the night knights, but soon calmed down. The knight welcoming the team had seen many dragons. There were quite a lot of dragons on Flame Island, especially the invisible dragon. It appeared very frequently, and its beautiful posture had already convinced everyone. Therefore, everyone was immune to the new aluminum dragon. A moment later, another vortex appeared in the teleportation array, and a team of knights shuttled out. Seeing the familiar flag behind the knight, Florence wanted to go forward to greet them, but he stopped and followed the other knight. He did not want others to know about his relationship with Duke Piero. After all, he had decided to rely on his own efforts to create a new family. His shyness did not affect the whole welcoming ceremony. Lee William had already come forward on his black blood horse and performed the knight greeting with Duke Piero. Duke Piero, fellow knight, welcome to Flame Island. On behalf of the King of List, I extend a heartfelt welcome to you. His Majesty has been looking forward to your arrival, and the Flame Kingdom now need you to join us to create a new era of the kingdom. Chapter 1038. Thank you, Marquis Lee William, for your grand welcome and His Majesty List's concern. Piero Grayiron has yearned for the Fire Kingdom for a long time, and now he has finally set foot on the land of Fire Island. In the days to come, I will dedicate all my and the Grayiron family's loyalty to this land. Now, please let me introduce you to the gentlemen behind me. They were all brave knights of the Grayiron Duchy in the past, loyal and upright. Marquis Mendez, Marquis Grayiron, a perfect Sky Knight. Duke Piero and Marquis Lee William introduced the nobles in front of them to each other. Under the scorching September sun, the nobles chatted enthusiastically. Wild Bumblebee was extremely envious. He also hoped to become a member of a great noble family, but he was only a small follower at the moment. However, this was not important. After coming to the Fire Kingdom, all the nobles would no longer follow Piero Grayiron. They would all follow List Fire. I'm not strong enough yet, but I'm young enough. I've been taking royal jelly produced by my family every day, and it's comparable to magic potions. I can already vaguely feel that I'm about to break through the limits of an Earth Knight. My future is in the sky, and the Bumblebee family will also become a true great noble family. There are actually many nobles like Wild. Every knight who migrated thousands of miles to the Fire Kingdom hoped to make a name for themselves here. List's legendary status was like a flag that attracted ambitious knights. When many countries were first established, this was how they attracted talents. The personal charisma of the monarch guided his followers to overcome all obstacles and cultivate a glorious career. This was because they were not prisoners, but migrated knights. This was why this group of 1 duke for marquises, 17 earls, 38 viscounts, and a large number of baron and lord knight migrated to the Fire Kingdom. They were quickly put in important positions. Other than the fact that their fiefs had to wait until after the country was established, their treatment was no different from before. Liszt did not immediately receive these people. He was busy building the dragon nest for the aluminum dragon. Aluminum dragons didn't have high requirements for their living environment, but they liked shiny silver things. They couldn't fake silver. They had to have the unique luster of metallic silver. Therefore, Liszt built a huge silver-plated dragon nest for the aluminum dragon near the Fire Kingdom. Caverns carved out of the mountains. Caverns that aluminum dragons like to live in. At the entrance of the cave, there was a lake. Instead of water, it was filled with mercury. The large amount of mercury mined from the mercury mine in Dragon Valley City had yet to be put to use. In reality, most of the resources would be brought to the Flame Royal City to be stored. This was the private property of the Flame family. During the construction of Monarch City, a large number of warehouses would be built around the Killing Moon Sacred Mountain to store supplies. In the future, when the land surrounding the Fire Kingdom was developed, even the elves would move over. Apart from the Fire Kingdom and a few other major cities, the other cities would be given to the nobles of the Burning Legion. As the direct orders of chivalry of the Fire family, he would have to raise himself in his own fief. Many of the national systems that Liszt designed were borrowed from the Sapphire Principality. The Sapphire clan created the Blue Blood Alliance, and he created the Burning Legion. Of course, most countries were like this. The knight system itself was a social system that was difficult to define in terms of the form of a country. The nature of a king was not much different from that of a great aristocrat. It was just that the king had a larger territory, more followers, more resources, a more sound management system, and more centralized family power. How about this place? For this silver cavern, I have melted tens of millions of silver coins to arrange such a large area. Roar. The aluminum dragon stood at the entrance of the dragon nest. It first looked down at the mercury lake at the entrance of the cave, then looked at the dragon nest, and gave its opinion. So. It looked beautiful, but it did not have a full silver interior. It was only silver-plated, which did not match its taste. Be content. Do you know that I have melted all the silver coins I have plundered? Fortunately, the Fire Kingdom has not yet begun to be in theft and can be bartered. Otherwise, the lack of silver coins would directly lead to the collapse of the monetary system. In the future, I will buy more silver coins and recast the dragon nest for you. Roar. The aluminum dragon reluctantly agreed. At this time, Liszt touched its scales and said, "Now that you have lived in a new dragon nest, you should have a new name. I have prepared it for you. Let's call you Connor." Connor, an ordinary name. Roar. The aluminum dragon had no interest in the name, so it reluctantly accepted it and did not ask what Connor represented. Even if it asked, Liszt would not say, because it was a memory from another world. There was a movie called Terminator, in which the main character was a human leader, John Connor, who fought against the Terminator robot. The villain in the sequel, the T-1000, was an infiltration-type Terminator, also known as a liquid robot. And it just so happened that when the aluminum dragon was fully mature, it could also be liquefied. It was not good to call it the aluminum dragon T-1000, so Liszt simply called it Connor. Before the aluminum dragon could familiarize itself with its dragon nest, a loud dragon roar suddenly came. It was the bronze dragon Marta flying over. Its dragon nest was not far from the aluminum dragon's dragon nest. Roar. The aluminum dragon Connor felt the aura of the bronze dragon Marta, and suddenly its scales stood on end. It stood at the entrance of the dragon nest, staring fiercely at the sky. Facing the direction of the sun, the bronze dragon Marta, whose body was emitting golden light, came to the aluminum dragon's dragon nest in a domineering manner. Its body was strong, and its golden luster was dazzling. Connor's body was slender, and its scales were grayish-white without much luster. In comparison, the aluminum dragon suddenly looked like an ordinary beast, not as noble and gorgeous as the bronze dragon. Roar! Roar! The two dragons stared at each other, not giving way to each other, and both got into an attacking posture. Seeing this, Liz sighed. This was the disadvantage of having too many dragons. They would have a very strong, competitive mentality. It would be better if it was a different knight riding a dragon, but the key was that they were all List dragons. Neither of them liked their knight to establish a close relationship with other dragons. Marta, go back to your dragon nest. List was a very controlling person, and he did not like his dragons overstepping their boundaries. If you don't go back, your treatment will be downgraded. You're a smart dragon. You should know what choice is best for you. The bronze dragon squinted at List. It turned its head. Roar. It roared at the aluminum dragon, then flew up leisurely, returning to its dragon nest. In fact, it was only here to declare its position. As a powerful magic metal dragon, the Fire Kingdom was its territory. New brother, be smart. How restless. After driving away the bronze dragon Marta and appeasing the aluminum dragon Connor, List finally breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to head to Jade City to host a banquet for the newly arrived Piero and the others. Chapter 1039. At the banquet, the atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. List and Duke Piero sat together, surrounded by Lee William Tulip, Di Maria, Emily, and other higher-ups of the Fire Kingdom. I promised my followers that I would establish a kingdom within 3 years. It's already the 2nd year. Sapphire calendar year 156 is about to pass, and at the beginning of year 158, the Fire Kingdom will be officially established. Therefore, you need to work on Blazing Island for the next year and a half. I understand, Your Majesty. Which city will the Grey Steel family stay in? Piero asked. We'll build a new city in the middle of Blazing Island, on a piece of fertile land near the sea. The sea there is mostly shallow, and it's very suitable for the development of aquaculture. Your Majesty, you want a farm in the sea. Piero was confused. List smiled mysteriously. Duke Piero, it seems that you don't know much about the Fire Kingdom. The Fire Kingdom is blessed by the Knight's glory, and even the surrounding Shell Sea is blessed by the Knight's glory. I have 7 mermaids as my followers, and a large number of ugly fish slaves. Mermaids? Piero was shocked. Seeing Piero's expression, Lee William, who was sipping his wine, felt inexplicably refreshed. This was probably the expression he had when he heard that List had become a Sky Knight, become a Dragon Rider, and become a magic shooter. But on second thought, he suddenly became angry. Suddenly, he became angry. He admired Piero's expression and felt very good. Then, did List also admire his expression at that time? Glancing at List, who was bragging to Piero about how mermaids followed him, Lee William shook his head inwardly, consoling himself that he was just overthinking things. After all, he was his son. How could he have the bad taste of watching his father make a fool of himself? After consoling himself, Lee William quickly adjusted his state of mind and began admiring Piero, as well as the other nobles at the banquet. Do mermaids really exist? They used to rule the sea and get along well with humans. They actually accepted Your Majesty's title and became marquises of the sea. This is unbelievable. I really want to go to the seaside and see the mermaids. There's actually a race called ugly fish. They're cheap labor. Your Majesty, you're the ruler of the sky, land, and sea. This land is full of legends. Your Majesty, you're a legend destined to shock the entire legendary continent, and Her Highness Emily is also an incredible legend. The praises were endless. At this moment, a greater noble from the Grey Iron Duchy asked curiously, Emily has no family name? Family name. It was the symbol of civilization. Nobles all had their own surnames, except for the Emperor of the Empire. Surnames were no longer worthy of the Emperor's glory. In many countries, even serfs had their own surnames, such as the Sapphire Duchy. However, it was very unreasonable for nobles, especially great nobles, to not have a surname, which was why this great noble asked out of curiosity. Emily's face was still young and immature. After all, she was only 15 years old. However, her long experience had made her mature. She replied calmly, "Emily is your Majesty's spear and shield. I will follow your Majesty for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter if I have a surname or not." The conversation should have ended at this point, but this great noble's brain was a little stubborn, and he actually asked, "Your Highness, are you not planning to start a family? Why do I have to start a family?" In Emily's eyes, the glory and inheritance of nobles are far inferior to the glory of His Majesty. Emily said seriously, "Being loyal to His Majesty is Emily's greatest wish, and I will fight for it for the rest of my life. In the future, you will understand how lucky it is to follow His Majesty." Emily's words were a little mushy, making Liszt feel a little embarrassed. However, he understood that Emily really thought so. The more he understood, the more embarrassed he felt. However, after peeling off this layer of embarrassment, it was extremely satisfying. This was the reason why he liked to cultivate young followers. Ahem. On the surface, he still had to keep a low profile. Emily is my most outstanding follower, and also my most gratifying student. The Fire Kingdom started from nothing, and many knights climbed up from the bottom. No matter if they are serfs or nobles, they all have a way to rise here, and it can be seen everywhere. He raised his wine glass, and raised it. Recently, many people have been saying that it is my glory that has brought the Fire Kingdom to life. And I hope, no matter if it is my glory or the glory of a knight, it will be able to bless everyone standing on this land. Everyone raised their glasses, and Gort, who was in charge of adjusting the atmosphere, took the opportunity to shout, "To the glory of His Majesty! To the glory of His Majesty! To the glory of His Majesty!" Whether it was voluntary or not, everyone followed Gort's lead and started to shout this slogan. Liszt wanted to smile, and he was more and more satisfied with Gort. He drained the wine in his glass in one gulp, and then put down the glass, indicating for everyone to quiet down. He made a gesture that successful people and leaders like to do, pointing his index finger upwards and shaking it slightly. It is fate that has guided us to gather here. Everyone, do not be anxious. Sapphire calendar year 158 is the first year of the Fire calendar, and the Fire Kingdom is with you. Land, population, resources, elves, status, power, whatever you want, I can give it to you. After a pause, his tone became more and more sonorous. And now, all of you, what you need to do is to offer me loyalty, courage, and integrity. It was Gort again. He was always able to stand up at the most appropriate moment. Your Majesty, Gort Mast offers you all my loyalty, courage, and integrity. Thus, the nobles who were a beat slower also stood up, shouting to offer their loyalty, courage, and integrity. Emily, Piero, Di Maria, and the other great nobles did the same. Only when Lee William was about to stand up, Liszt pulled him back. "Father, you only need to be proud of your son." Lee William was greatly comforted. "Of course I am proud of you, Liszt Flame, my son. On the day you were born, the entire forest of Coral Island was calling your name. I proudly watched you grow up day by day, becoming the embodiment of justice." Liszt smiled and said, "I understand, Father. When I am crowned king, I will rule this country with wisdom and power, and I will also cautiously use my formidable power. I will inspire the hearts of the people and lead the knight to true victory." Chapter 1040. The Big Dragon is Dead is not in good condition. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1041. The father and son looked at each other and smiled. There was no need to say anything. This banquet was a joyous one for both the host and the guests. The next day, List arranged for Duke Piero to be the third vice chairman of the development committee. The rest of the matters were left to his father. In the past, he was reluctant to let go of power and liked to experience authority at work. However, after getting used to it for a while, he no longer wanted to be tied down by mundane tasks every day. Fortunately, he had a few blood relatives, especially his father, Lee William, who he could entrust to him. It was good to be a hands-off boss. With the hope of eternal life, List's desire to start a family had faded. Even if he did not master the skills of the Dragon Lord, the Phoenix incarnation had given him a lifespan of at least a few hundred years. He had established a kingdom in a few years. It was unimaginable what kind of realm he would reach after a few hundred years. I have to work harder now and help a chief figure out the Stronghold Knight's cultivation system. When I become a Stronghold Knight that surpasses the Dragon Knight realm, the entire legendary continent will be under my control. At least according to Laird Truth, there is no one stronger than the Dragon Knight in the Noble Frost Empire. The Noble Frost Empire did not have a Stronghold Knight. Obviously, the Unsetting Radiance Empire and the Blue Dragon Empire did not have a Stronghold Knight. Otherwise, the tripod would have been broken long ago. However, it was not easy to figure out the Stronghold Knight's cultivation system. Xianxia had been working in the Wizard Tower for a long time, but she still could not understand the nature of the Stronghold. Brother, it's difficult to explore the Stronghold using ordinary methods. We can only rely on Bard's adult strength to spy on the Weave Dragon and find clues about the Stronghold from it. Xianxia announced helplessly in mid-September that there was no progress in the research on the Stronghold. List comforted her. Don't worry, Xianxia. Observing the Weave Dragon is the worst plan. If we alarm the Weave Dragon, it will be hard to imagine the consequences. We can only make a decision when we have no other choice. Why don't you put down your Stronghold research and go out to enjoy the scenery? Xianxia is not tired at all. I ride Charlie to the beach every evening. Then I'll change my research job and find some inspiration. Yep. Xianxia has a lot of research at hand. Emerald Dragon Leg, Mystic Dragon's Soul Fruit, Golden Apple Wood, Bloodline Fruit, Pitch Black Ring, Equivalence Alchemy. Xianxia has been wanting to research alchemy recently. I've already given Laird Truth the relevant data on equivalence alchemy. He's checking the exchange rates between all metals. The magic shooter who immersed himself in compiling the encyclopedia and summarized his knowledge into the research topics of Laird Truth's life. After contributing the Laird Research Project to Xianxia, his knowledge was acknowledged by Xianxia, and he was allowed to participate in some of the experiments. She handed over the data to Ryder, who would lead the magicians to research it himself. Right now, Xianxia was like the boss of a laboratory, while people like Laird were the boss subordinates. Ordinary magicians were the research dogs, while the great magicians were the leaders of the research dogs. The hierarchy was clear, and the division of labor was clear. Some people had to work, while others had to work. In October, there was a rapid breakthrough in the research on alchemy. With reference to the ability of the Pitch Black Ring, under the supervision of Xianxia, a brand new alchemy magic array was set up in the laboratory and successfully refined a ton of iron into a pound of mithril. The ratio was about 2,350 to 1, an equivalent exchange of 2,350 to 1. If I set up a magic array to replace the effect of the Pitch Black Ring and take into account the manpower of the magicians, the ratio might increase to 2,470 to 1. Laird calculated in his notebook and drew out a table of the equivalents. List raised his eyebrows. Even if it's worth 2,500 to 1, it's still a very profitable business. Now that the territory is no longer short of iron, it's completely possible to refine some of the iron into mithril. Mithril played an important role in knight equipment, especially in a predatory war like the Pioneering Order. The light mithril armor allowed a knight to come and go like the wind. Snatching and running had always been the most adept skill of knight at sea. Your Majesty, the equivalence ratio of iron to mithril is not the most cost-effective. The most cost-effective is copper to adamantine. After calculating the wear and tear, the equivalence ratio can reach 2,310 to 1. The smaller the ratio, the greater the amount of magic metal that could be refined from ordinary metals. This is also possible. The importance of adamantine is self-evident, and there is no shortage of bronze. We have to develop this alchemy. Liszt immediately decided to get both mithril and adamantine. As for orichalcum, there was no need for orichalcum. The orichalcum dragon Marta was lying in the Fire Kingdom and could produce orichalcum at any time. He then asked, what is the equivalence ratio of ordinary metals to gold and silver? Gold and silver were the common currencies in the legendary continent. If the equivalence ratio was good, gold and silver could be produced in large quantities. This way, the Fire Kingdom would never lack money again. The equivalence ratio of iron to gold is 1,850 to 1. The equivalence ratio of iron to silver is 1,430 to 1. The equivalence ratio of copper to gold is 1,260 to 1. The equivalence ratio of copper to silver is 870 to 1. The equivalence ratio of silver is not much different from that of gold. However, gold is much more valuable than silver. It is not cost-effective to exchange iron and copper for silver. It is all right to exchange for gold, but the process of alchemy is complicated. It is more cost-effective to exchange iron and copper for magic metal. After a little calculation, Liszt figured out the profit. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 100 silver coins, which was equivalent to 10,000 copper coins. Calculating from the gold content and other aspects, the value of gold to copper was about 2,500. The effect of alchemy was 1,1260. The effect of alchemy was about to turn 1 gold coin into 2 gold coins. The effect was not as fast as doing business. It was obviously not cost-effective. The exchange ratio of silver was even more exaggerated. Not only would there be no profit, but there would also be a serious loss. In conclusion, it was still better to use iron, copper, and other metals to alchemy for magic metal to make a lot of money. It was no wonder that alchemy was the favorite topic of all mages. Almost all mages would choose to study alchemy after they had some achievements. With alchemy, they would no longer be short of money. They would have the money to conduct more experiments and explore more truths. Alchemy will be the top secret of the Fire Kingdom. Other than Qi, the technology of the alchemy magic circle can only be controlled by the 3 mages, Laird, Chris, and Kenley. If it is leaked, I will hold you responsible, Liszt announced solemnly after looking at the results of the alchemy. The alchemy magic circle was classified as an official technology and was prohibited from private use. This undoubtedly affected the enthusiasm of the 3 mages. So, in order to motivate the 3 of them to take charge of the alchemy magic circle, he announced again, the alchemy magic circle needs to be carried out immediately. No matter who takes charge of the alchemy magic circle, you will be able to get 10% of the net profit for your private magic experiments and research. With that said, Chris was fine. She rarely engaged in magic research and mainly focused on administration. Money was of no use to her. Laird and Kenley's eyes lit up. They were true believers of the truth. With money, they could do whatever they wanted. There is no need to apply for research funds from the Guild of Magic. Your Majesty, please rest assured. As long as there is time, I will be happy to take charge of the alchemy magic circle. Chapter 1042. I'm becoming more and more reliant on magic. I don't know if this is good or bad. The weave is shrinking, and the weave dragon is sleeping. I feel that things aren't that simple. The reform of mages has to be accelerated, and the profession of mages should be diluted as much as possible. When it came to preventing the revival of mages, Liszt shared the same mentality as all the nobles. They could rely on mages to create equipment, but they must never be allowed to affect the Knight system. Perhaps in the Knight's mind, the ancient Moon Empire was indeed the symbol of the pinnacle of civilization. Every little bit of success had to be attributed to the Moon Empire. But when it came to themselves, a second Moon Empire must not be allowed to appear. That was a taboo. The great could be worshipped in temples, but they must not exist in reality. If there were any signs, they would be attacked. The appearance of the alchemy spell formation was the second piece of advanced magic technology that the Fire Kingdom grasped after the teleportation spell formation. List loved it, but was wary of it. It was classified as a national secret, and he must not allow any leakage. Without the guidance of a magic shooter, the outside world could not replicate this technology. Brother, when Chi was thoroughly researching alchemy, she had new inspiration for the stronghold. I'll go back and think about this problem now. After throwing the alchemy research topic away, Chi busied herself with thinking about the stronghold. Sai, this is clearly my cultivation system, but in the end, it all depends on Chi's research. It's hard to imagine how many detours I would have had to take to develop to this height if I hadn't met Chi. List sighed inwardly, but there was nothing he could do. Research was really not his forte. Without the blessing of the power of fate, he was actually just an ordinary person. If he was really talented and had amazing talent, he would have made a name for himself on Earth long ago. He would not have worked overtime like a dog and then suddenly died and transmigrated. So he was very self-aware. He could usually brag and pretend, but he had to recognize his own strengths and weaknesses at critical times. He played to his strengths and avoided his weaknesses. Chi was a research-type talent, responsible for solving technical problems. He was a battle-type talent, responsible for charging and breaking through enemy lines and achieving achievements. They complemented each other. In Fire Castle, the old butler Carter softly interrupted List, who was sitting in front of the piano and thinking, "Master, Marquis de Maria requests a report. Tell him to wait in the study." "Yes, master." "Oh, by the way, Mr. Carter, tell Mrs. Morrison to stop her work on Bampo milk tea. After drinking so many milk teas with new tastes, I still prefer the original taste." "As you wish, master." Carter bowed slightly and left the piano room. List's fingers stroked the piano, but he had no interest in playing. Speaking of which, he hadn't touched the piano for a long time. There were too many dragons and elves at home, and he couldn't split himself. His piano-playing skills were very rusty, and he no longer had the elegance of a piano king. But the piano pieces he had composed were becoming more and more widespread. Not only did the noble young ladies of the Fire Kingdom fantasize about List every time they played to Alice, City in the Sky, Swan of Saint Saëns, and other piano pieces. In the three big kingdoms in the northeast corner of the legendary continent, many noble ladies and young ladies also fantasized about different images of List. Some noble ladies felt that List was a romantic and passionate person. Otherwise, how could he compose such delicate and gentle pieces? Some noble ladies felt that List was a powerful and strong man with amazing stamina. Only such an identity was worthy of the identity of the Dragon Knight who had founded the great foundation of the Fire Kingdom. Some young ladies felt that List was a killing beast. He had even killed 2 of the Dragon Knight. How many ordinary knight had died in his hands? How could such a person not be a beast? But in the dead of night, the young ladies often fantasized about the charming scene of a beauty and a beast. In the hearts of most knight, List represented a legend that was enough to be the idol of everyone in the era of the night. Now, almost all the knight in the 3 big kingdoms used List as the model for the protagonist. If the protagonist only rode a dragon, he would be scolded until he doubted his own life. In the past, it was cool for the protagonist to go out and meet elves. Now, the protagonist had to go out and meet a dragon to be cool. There were even smart writers who wrote many books such as List, The Legendary Adventures of the Flame, List, the detailed explanation of the process of riding the flame dragon, List, the unspeakable story of the flame dragon, List, the flame and Acheroids, the unspeakable story of the truth, and so on. These books were all successfully sold out and were printed one edition after another. Almost all of those young knight would carry a book about List with them to constantly motivate themselves to become the next List, the Flame. List's glory had transcended the borders. The young knight of the Eagle Kingdom also worshipped him. This was indeed very touching. So when he met Di Maria Rainflower Stone in the study, he could see that on the bookshelf behind him, there was a pile of night novels with the words List Flame written on them. When he was bored, he would read them. He felt that it was quite interesting, especially some nude novels. Your Majesty, this year's expansion order has been prepared. The Sapphire Duchy's orders of chivalry have been assembled. The Sapphire Duchy will be led by the Marquis of Golden Island, Roderick Goldenwheat. The Sapphire Duke will personally lead the Sapphire Dragon. What about a home? It has been decided that I will be the commander-in-chief. Count Geoffrey Hibiscus and Count Paris will be the deputy commander-in-chief. 10,000 Earth Knights have been assembled. Among them are 1 Perfection Sky Knight, 8 Sacred Swordsman Sky Knights, and 21 Ordinary Sky Knights. Have you decided on the specific time of the expedition and the location of the attack? The time of the expedition is set for October 3rd. There are 2 choices for the location of the expedition. One is the Sardinia Bay on the northern coastline of the Eagle Kingdom, and the other is the lush promenade on the southern coastline. The final decision will be made when the time comes to assemble and set off from the Ironhoof Island, Oxhoof City. This was to prevent the news from leaking and to let the Eagle Kingdom take precautions in advance. Every time the Sapphire Duchy issued an expansion order, the specific location of the attack would be decided after going out to sea. List nodded. Proceed according to your decision. I will secretly protect the orders of chivalry with Marquis Emily from the Dragon Knight's attack. Then I will go and preside over the expansion order. Go. While the Fire Kingdom was assembling the orders of chivalry, the autumn wind rolled up the fallen leaves on the vast coastline of the Eagle Kingdom. All the aristocrats, big and small, began to get nervous. It's the season of the Sapphire Fly's expansion order again. An aristocrat at the banquet suddenly sighed. I wonder which egg the Sapphire Fly will bite this year. With the appetite of the Sapphire Fly last year, if it really comes here, I'm afraid that everyone present here will suffer. What are you afraid of? If the Sapphire Fly comes, we will leave the castle and hide in the countryside. If the castle wants to plunder, then plunder. Anyway, I don't rely on farming to make a living. Humph! Who doesn't know that the Wild Dog Mercenary Group is your property? Last time, they plundered a small town in my territory and didn't follow the rules to capture serfs. I didn't even bother with you for that. What evidence do you have that the Wild Dog Mercenary Group plundered? I naturally have a rat planted in the Wild Dog Mercenary Group. Then you should properly interrogate this rat to see if he is competent or not. Okay, stop quarreling. Let's think about how to pass this year's expansion order. Unlike in previous years, the legendary Dragon Knight is the master behind the expansion order. At the mention of the legendary Dragon Knight, several aristocrats present suddenly quieted down. After a good while of silence, a drunken aristocrat broke the silence. If this year's expansion order comes to us, then we might as well not resist and join the Fire Kingdom together. Don't those smugglers advertise the welfare of the Fire Kingdom every day? Maybe we can also fight for glory. Chapter 1043. War was cruel, but this year's development made the war seem a little too smooth. When the knights attacked the dense corridor, most of the lords of the Eagle Kingdom who were attacked either closed the gates of their castles in advance and hid in the countryside, or directly opened the city gates to welcome the arrival of the king's army and became a part of the invaders. Some lords had even packed all the resources in their castles and were waiting for the arrival of the orders of chivalry. Then, they would board large ships and set off for the Fire Kingdom. Some lords could not bear to abandon too many resources and even arrange for the serfs to follow the night team. There were not many scenes of battle that required a charge. List was hiding at the material border. Seeing this scene, he could not help but sigh. It seems that the Eagle Kingdom has basically given up on the hinterland along the coast. And these lords have also given up. Since the Eagle Kingdom is so generous, I will let the knight work harder and plunder through the lush corridor, and then go to the Gulf of Aden. Adonis Moonlight Silver and his knight could not protect this land and his people. As a result, mercenary groups ran amok, serfs were sold wantonly, and civilians lived precarious lives. List replaced him and moved all the civilians here to Flame Island. Let them start a new life on the blazing island, no longer having to worry about the mercenaries' invasion, and no longer having to worry about the insecurity of life. As a lord, List might not have outstanding ideas such as equality for all, but he always adhered to one principle. That was to protect his people, to eat well, to wear warm clothes, and not to be killed at will. Even if they were his followers' subjects, he would interfere to ensure the basic safety of these people. This was his bottom line and the kindness in his heart. Emily, what do you think of this development order? He found a light green gemstone dragon knight, Emily, who was resting at the top of a mountain. List had barred descent in front of her and asked, "Your Majesty." Emily bowed and then replied, "There is almost no resistance. This is the glory of your Majesty. All the feudal lords in the lush corridor can be plundered and taken away. For the development of the Fire Kingdom, there is no need to be gentle like the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. If we plunder too much, this fertile land will no longer be cultivated by the nobles. The Eagle Kingdom has 4 prosperous coastlines: Sardine Bay, Yellow Mud Coast, Roaring Estuary, and Lush Corridor. Once a year, we can plunder for 4 years. After 4 years, the Fire Kingdom will be strong enough, and the land will have been cultivated. We can be completely self-sufficient. You're right, but I'm planning to plunder Lush Promenade and Sardinia Bay this year. I'm going to plunder both of them." List always complained that the construction was too slow. Plundering 2 territories a year can last for 2 years. In addition to the other territories along the coastline, it won't be a problem to maintain 3 development orders. Even if we can't plunder the coast of the Eagle Kingdom, Sir Achilles can also plunder the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom with the teleportation magic circle. List had never thought of opening a teleportation circle directly to the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom. The construction cost of the teleportation circle is too high. I heard that His Excellency Achilles is currently improving the teleportation circle. With His Excellency Achilles' great knowledge and magic, 3 years should be enough for him to build a regular teleportation circle. He can even design a magic door that can be temporarily opened. Emily was very respectful toward Achi. Emily was very respectful of Achi and thought that Achi was almost omnipotent. Maybe. List put his hands behind his back and looked at the migrating night team in the distance. His voice was calm and powerful. "I don't like war, even though I am always the winner of war." Emily's eyes lit up as she watched his back. Invisible Dragon Bard took out a handful of smoked grass and chewed it slowly. Light Emerald Dragon Ethan twisted his head in disdain. "Mom, where are we going?" On the simple wooden carriage, the little boy, who was only a few years old, huddled tightly in his mother's arms and asked in a low voice. His mother squeezed at the edge of the carriage and tightly grasped the handrail to protect herself and her son. "We are going somewhere far away. Sir Lord will take us to a better place to live." The little boy did not understand what a better place was, but he did not continue to ask. Instead, he looked out of the carriage through a small gap under his mother's armpit. This was a carriage team that stretched for more than 10 kilometers. Walking on the dirt road, a squad of knight could be seen patrolling around the carriage team to prevent it from being attacked by mercenary corps on the way. Along the way, they had already encountered several mercenary corps that tried in vain to plunder the carriages and seize serfs. Especially when the team stopped to make a fire to cook, they could always see the squad of knight nervously searching every part of the forest in search of mercenary corps that might be lying in ambush. The little boy peeked at the knight on the tall horse. When the knight's eyes swept over the carriage, he immediately buried his head in his mother's arms. After waiting for a while, he stealthily raised his head and peeked again at the distant knight through the gap. The silver-white armor and the gleaming knight's lance were deeply engraved in his young mind. As well as leaving a superficial impression, Knight to protect himself and his mother. After a month-long trek, the team finally arrived at the sea. The little boy and his mother saw a large number of ships anchored in the harbor. They had never seen such large ships before. Each one of them was like a castle suspended in the sea. A black flag fluttered high on the mast of the large ships. The flag was embroidered with burning flames. The flames formed a huge fire dragon pattern, fire dragon merchant ship. This was the Fire Kingdom's new three-masted cargo ship. It used a combination of horizontal and longitudinal sails for braking. Its characteristic could only be described in one word: big. In order to transport these knight and serfs, List no longer cared about concealment. He directly drove all the large ships that the Fire Kingdom had madly built over the past few years. Except for the Fire Dragon merchant ship, there was also a slender ship with a black flag hanging on the mast. However, the flag was no longer embroidered with burning flames. Instead, it was embroidered with white metal fragments. The fragments formed a huge Iron Dragon pattern, Iron Dragon warship, a three-masted ship that stood side by side with the Fire Dragon merchant ship. It was mainly used to transport the knight on expeditions. It was very mobile. By the sea, the serfs lined up under the knight's organization and boarded the Fire Dragon merchant ship one after another. On board, the sailors distributed a small pill, seasickness medicine, to the serfs. This was a new drug developed by the Guild of Magic. Not only was there a seasickness medicine, but there were also some other drugs. In terms of drug research, List was very generous. These drugs were basically not needed by the knight class, but the commoners were very dependent on them. Another lord would never invest in drugs to treat serfs. Only List insisted. "Mother, where are we going?" The little boy asked his mother in a low voice. Coming to the seaside and boarding the ship, everything made him curious and afraid. Without waiting for his mother to answer, a young man who looked like a mage and also like a noble came over. The young man smiled and said in wind language, "Little guy, the place we're going to is called the Fire Kingdom. From today onwards, you and your mother will become the subjects of the great List King of the Fire Kingdom. There will be no war, no harm. As long as you work hard, you will be able to eat your fill." After saying that, the young man then turned to the surrounding serfs and said loudly, "I'm Donnie Truth, the medical arcanist on board. If you feel uncomfortable, I'll help you heal and ensure that everyone can arrive at the Fire Kingdom in good health." Chapter 1044. The current sailing technology was different from when List first came to this world. With the development of shipbuilding technology after he made his fortune, under the guidance of the creative wizard Inuit Truth, the hybrid sailboat had successfully replaced the square sail sailboat. Therefore, it only took 5 days to reach the island of Souls, which used to take 7 to 8 days to reach the island. There was a specially developed medicine for seasickness, and there were medical arcanists on board. Almost none of the migrating serfs lost their lives during the voyage. It was a novel experience of sailing on the sea. From afar, they could see the towering Soul Fortress on the island of Souls. It was a towering white castle with a flaming flag fluttering in the wind. The castle did not have many special features. Because the island of Souls was very small, the castle appeared more slender, like a wizard tower. Of course, it also had the function of a tower. This Soul Fortress was also the only lighthouse on the island of Souls. The crystal lamp on the top of the tower was brightly lit day and night. It guided the direction of all the ships. Everyone line up. Women and children disembark first. Follow the knight leading the team. Don't get separated. The island of Souls has strict security. Anyone who dares to stray will be shot by the patrols. The knight on the ship shouted, directing the thousands of people to disembark in an orderly manner. "You're hanging on to my baggage. I dropped my shoe. Don't push me. Well, lively place. Is this where we're going to live? It's a magic gate. That's a magic gate. I heard the captain say that it's the island of Souls magic gate. I heard that too. Passing through the magic gate is the kingdom of flames. A great kingdom without hunger or mercenaries." The little boy held his mother's hand tightly and squeezed in the line. His ears were filled with the chatter of the serfs and the loud scolding of the knight. After walking through the long line, he arrived in front of the magic gate of the Island of Souls. A dark blue vortex slowly rotated on his back. It was like a giant beast that was choosing its prey. Many people could be seen lining up to enter the mouth of the giant beast and then disappear. I don't want to go in, I don't want to go in. One could even hear a serf who was too afraid to enter the magic gate, but was still dragged and thrown into the magic gate by the knight. List hoped that the knight would treat the serfs well. However, it was impossible for the knight to be gentle towards the serfs. It was normal for them to be rude. Mom, I'm scared. The little boy shook his mother's hand. Don't be afraid. That's a magic door. What's a magic door? It's a magic door, a magical magic. Hold Mummy's hand and don't let go. We'll be able to reach our new home after walking through it. His mother also didn't know what a magic gate was. Although a knight had explained it to them on the ship, the serf's limited understanding was unable to understand what it meant to travel through space. Of course, it was not necessary to know the specific principles. It was enough to know that this was magic. Ordinary people were always full of reverence for magic and thought that it was omnipotent. When the team arrived at the magic gate, they heard a knight reading out the things to take note of, including the instructions for traveling through the magic gate, the Fire Kingdom's prohibitions, and so on. However, in the face of the mysterious and terrifying magic gate, few serfs listened carefully. They were either eager to try or on tenterhooks. They took the initiative or were pushed into the behemoth-like blue vortex. Boom! Jim, close your eyes and hold Mummy's hand tightly. Okay. The little boy Jim closed his eyes, grabbed his mother's hand with both hands, and was pushed into the magic gate by the crowd. The next moment, a wonderful feeling of weightlessness hit him, and he was so scared that he almost cried. Fortunately, his mother's hand was always there, making him feel safer little by little. At this time, he couldn't help but think of the wizard named Donnie Truth, who always boasted about how magical and great the magic gate was. He said that it was jointly built by His Majesty the Great King List Tulip and the great magic scholar Aroyd Truth. It was the most magical embodiment of magic in the secular world, a symbol of the truth being conquered by humans. Of course, the little boy Jim didn't understand the above boasting. He just remembered that the magic gate was great and wanted to take a peek. So he cautiously opened his eyes and saw darkness, with occasional lightning-like flashes of light around him. Before he could see clearly, his body tilted, and he had already walked out of the magic transmission array. He fell to the ground and rolled around with his mother and other serfs. When he was helped up by his mother, his eyes suddenly opened up. He saw a city with densely packed buildings, with no end in sight. There were tall castles around the city and beautiful roads connected to each other. There was also a wizard tower towering into the clouds, as if it was a bridge between heaven and earth. There were also huge birds flying in the sky, and a knight could be vaguely seen on the back of the bird. Don't be in a daze. Hurry up, follow the team forward. Don't block the magic gate. Hurry up and follow. Come here. Keep up. Keep up. Don't pick up your shoes again if you lose them. Someone will give you new daily necessities later. Gather, calm down, gather. Stand tight. Don't block the roadside. Gather in this open space. Before the serfs could sigh with emotion at the prosperous world they saw, they were shouted at by the trainee knight on horseback to gather in the open space beside the road. Almost all of them gathered in a small group of 300 to 500 people. They were strictly restricted from walking and talking in private, so they could only wait anxiously. A moment later, a middle-aged man dressed as an official rushed over on horseback with his assistants. With an impatient smile on his face, he said in broken wind language, "Hello, people from afar. I am a receptionist of the Reed City Surf Reception Committee. My name is White Asterisk Asterisk. You can call me Sir White Asterisk Asterisk. In the next few days, I will arrange for your clothing, food, housing, and transportation." Sir White Asterisk Asterisk paused and continued. "Now, I will read to you a letter from the Master of the Sea, the Lord of all the islands, the great holy dragon, Invisible Dragon Knight, Fire Dragon Knight, Copper Dragon Knight, Gray Iron Dragon Knight, Bone Dragon Knight, Aluminum Dragon Knight, and King of the Fire Kingdom, List Flame. The king is writing to us? Wow, there are so many Dragon Knight. There's only one Dragon Knight, and His Majesty is writing many dragons. Really, a letter from the king. How great! When the serfs heard the long list of titles, they were so surprised that they could not close their mouths. Be quiet, all of you. Sir White ***'s assistant immediately lashed the whip in his hand on the ground, making a crisp snapping sound. The crowd quickly fell silent. Only then did Sir White **** pretend to take out a letter and read it word by word. To my people who have come from afar, you are very unfortunate. You have lost your land, your homes, and even your loved ones. However, you are also very fortunate. In the Fire Kingdom, you will be able to start a new life. In the name of the king, I promise you that everyone will be able to work, have enough to eat, get married, and have children. You will not be disturbed by war. Your children will be able to train their combat aura and learn knowledge. They will be blessed by the glory of knights and be protected by the king. Chapter 1045. In China, there was a type of city called the Ghost City. There were many tall buildings and mountains, but they were empty and uninhabited. Hence, many foreign reporters reported that China's economy was collapsing and that it would be over soon. However, once the shops moved in and the facilities opened, the place would soon be filled with Chinese and become a new prosperous area. Liszt admired this model. He wanted to build many such ghost cities in his territory. Empty houses, empty streets, empty roads, and even the fields outside the cities were empty. There were no crops. Basically, there were ghost cities on the main roads, flat farmland, and other areas. Not only did it include ghost cities at the level of a small town, but it also included ghost cities at the level of a small city. Liszt even planned to build a few ghost cities at the level of a major city in the important areas of Flame Island. He was not afraid of the empty cities at all. As long as he continued to wage war and plunder, the people he plundered would automatically fill up the ghost cities and quickly start operations. The new batches of serfs that had arrived in Reed City were being sent to the various ghost cities. Many of the nobles who had voluntarily surrendered had their serfs absorbed by Liszt as well. These serfs would gradually regain their freedom in the future and fill the ranks of the free citizens. It would be the breeding ground for the future knight class. In fact, as the Fire Kingdom continued to develop technology, combining magic with farming and industry, the serf system could no longer keep up with the times. The power brought by the fire dragon, super magic, directly pushed the traditional handicrafts to the stage of factories. The birth of a large number of factories such as brick factories, glass factories, paper factories, cement factories, textile factories, and so on freed countless serfs from the farmlands and turned them into professional workers. Of course, there was still a long way to go to transition from serfdom to an industrial society. However, with the rapid development of the Guild of Magic and the continuous advancement of magic technology, the Fire Kingdom would one day fully realize a new civilization. Liszt was not opposed to such progress. The reason was simple. If such a change, similar to the Industrial Revolution, happened on Earth, society would be in turmoil and the rulers would likely become prisoners. However, in this world, power was ultimately the most important. Controlling the dragon was the foundation of ruling. The status of a dragon-rearing family would not change with the changes in society. As long as they had the dragon in their hands, they would be the most noble nobles in the world at all times. All he needed to do was to guard against the return of the magicians. After experiencing the power of magic, not only did his vigilance not weaken, it became even stronger. Only magic could compete with dragons. Anyway, the serfs who had migrated to Flames Island listened to the letter read by the receptionist. The credibility of the king in this era was still very strong. Even if it was just an open letter, it was still enough to make all the uneasy serfs calm down and follow the officials to live in the ghost city. The little boy, Jim, and his mother had also settled down in a small city under the jurisdiction of Infernal Fire City. The mother's job hadn't been settled yet, but the little boy had already been sent to school. Together with many other Moon Killer and Flame Men children of the same age, he received night lessons. The first lesson in school was called Loyalty Class. The three teachers used Serpentine, Wind Language, and Moon Language respectively to talk about the origin of the Fire Kingdom, the Great King, and the ruler of everyone. List Flame. Young Jim had heard this name countless times in just over a month, and it was deeply engraved in his mind. He also made some reflexive associations. List Flame was great, was glory, was the Dragon Knight, was the king, was the ruler, was the most honorable person in the world. This belief was like a seed buried in the heart of every child, germinating and growing with them. At the same time, the master of all the brainwashing methods, List, had already driven the invisible dragon bar to the Gulf of Aden, continuing to secretly protect orders of chivalry's ransacking of the coastline. Once again, a large number of nobles and lords were defeated. Then, the captives were captured, and those who surrendered. From top to bottom, everything that could be taken away was plundered, because they didn't know that orders of chivalry, under the banner of expansion, would turn around and attack the Gulf of Aden from the dense corridor. Many noble lords didn't have time to hide, and were wiped out by orders of chivalry. The battle results are very rich. Another large number of knight and civilians came in, and the population of the Fire Kingdom has skyrocketed. He was very satisfied with such a harvest. However, there was also a hint of regret in his satisfaction. It's a pity that the Eagle royal family has adopted a cowardly attitude and ignored the development of the war here. Otherwise, I would really want to have another dragon-slaying war. Today, I'm stronger than I was before, and my dragons are stronger too. I also want to participate in a dragon-slaying war and fight side by side with your majesty, Emily responded. There will be a chance. The Eagle Kingdom may be waiting for an opportunity. According to my investigation, the Eagle royal family has sent messengers to the Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Castle several times, trying to form an alliance with the three to fight against me. Although the Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Castle have no intention of forming an alliance at present, there will be sooner or later. List's infiltration of the three kingdoms had never stopped. His blood servants had already developed and grown. Merry Dawn and Daybreak, with his permission, had transformed a large number of new vampires. He even let Crazy control the Guild of Magic to add fuel to the fire, providing professional guidance for the vampires' training and evolving them into scouts. The new vampire's combat power was negligible, but the Bat Incarnation spell had been greatly improved. It was easier to hide its breath, and even the Sky Knight couldn't sense it. With the help of these new vampires, most of the news in the three kingdoms could be investigated. Moreover, the long-distance communication of the magic platform also allowed the vampires to send information back to the kingdom at any time. The efficiency was so high that the three kingdoms couldn't imagine it. Who asked the Fire Kingdom to enter the Information Age in advance? In terms of intelligence investigation, the Fire Kingdom was already far ahead. In addition, the Guild of Magic was also studying the 4 shadow incarnations, including Heathley's shadow, in preparation to crack this training system. Once successful, it would be another rich method of investigation. Unfortunately, the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, would rather die than submit. He didn't reveal any information about the Shadow Incarnation, which increased the difficulty of cracking it. Now is the best time to form an alliance to strangle the newborn Fire Kingdom. They won't have a chance in the future, Emily said after thinking. Why do you say so? Because with the speed of His Majesty's dragon riding, the number of dragons will soon exceed the 8 dragons of the Eagle Kingdom. Including the vassal countries, they only have 12 dragons. List smiled slightly. Actually, the number of dragons I have has already caught up with the Eagle Kingdom, because I also have a small water dragon that I keep in the sea. The Fire Dragon Leo, the Light Emerald Dragon Issen, the Invisible Dragon Bard, the Gray Iron Dragon Orn, the Mountain Copper Dragon Marta, the Bone Dragon Winnie, the Aluminum Dragon Connor, and the Water Dragon Walter. There were exactly 8 dragons, the same number of dragons as the Eagle royal family. Emily opened her mouth in a well-timed surprise. Did His Majesty get another new dragon? How great! Chapter 1046. Emily's praise was sincere. In fact, even Liszt himself felt that it was great. He was already riding 8 dragons, and there was also a Chi, the magic shooter riding a unicorn, and Laird Truth, the new magic shooter who had joined them. It was equivalent to gathering 10 people who stood at the pinnacle of strength. From the perspective of the dragon-slaying war, it was already enough to overthrow the rule of the Eagle Kingdom in one battle. However, from the basic level, the Knight class of the Fire Kingdom was still too small. It was unable to replace the Eagle Kingdom in ruling such a large territory. Moreover, the Eagle Kingdom would not want to accept the dragon-slaying war. Adonis Moonlight's silver strategy was very simple, which was to avoid battle, accumulate strength, and then frantically call for reinforcements to stop List's expansion. He had already revealed the news of the Divine Dragon to the noble Frost Empire. Obviously, the Unsetting Light Empire and the Blue Dragon Empire had already received the news. However, the distance between the two empires was too far. It would not be easy for them to come over and snatch the invisible dragon. Or perhaps they were plotting something in secret. This was also the thing that Liszt was most wary of. He did not dare to rashly launch the dragon-slaying war, fearing that the two empires would take advantage of the dragon-slaying war to secretly harm him. It was hard to say whether the Phoenix Incarnation's trump card had been exposed. Who knew what kind of unimaginable methods the Empire, which had been passed down for thousands of years, had? Moreover, even if we defeat the Eagle Kingdom in the Battle of Dragon Slaying, we won't be able to snatch so many dragons. The Soul Brand is a huge problem. He sighed in his heart. The Soul Imprint had a huge enhancement effect on the Dragon Soul world. Not only did he have to face a dragon, but he also had to face a perfect Dragon Knight. He had to use the bewildering dragon's soul fruit to lock the dragon's body. Only then would he be able to use it again and finally erase the soul imprint. He only had 2 soul fruits of the mysterious dragon, and it was not cost-effective to use them on the dragons of the Eagle Kingdom. Even with the hind legs of the Emerald Dragon, it would definitely cost a huge price to cultivate the soul fruit tree and produce new soul fruits of the mysterious dragon. He might even have to use the corpses of the dragons as nutrients to cultivate the fruit tree. The heart fruit tree on the Hard Island had been nourished by the Emerald Dragon, Ethan, to bear fruit. In other words, one dragon could be used as nutrients to produce 2 to 3 enigmatic dragon soul fruits. It sounded very profitable, but it was too difficult to execute something like killing a dragon and obtaining its fruit perfectly. After all, the resources needed to nurture an adult dragon were definitely astronomical. The noble Frost Empire had the remains of the Emerald Dragon, which could be used to cultivate the mystifying Dragon Soul fruit. However, the dragons of the noble Frost Empire did not grow crazily, which showed the complexity of the restrictions. However, I don't know if I could try to unite with the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, or even the Blast Furnace Kingdom, to divide up the Eagle Kingdom. The Fire Kingdom is destined to rise. I have the Invisible Dragon. Even a noble Frost Empire can't assassinate me. The Iron and Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Fort have no means to destroy me. Since the Fire Kingdom could not be destroyed, Steel Ridge and Furnace Castle's only choice was to passively resist or actively cooperate. Passive resistance was no different from slowly waiting for death. With the political means of the 2 royal families, they should be able to recognize this. Therefore, active cooperation was a more suitable choice. They could divide up the Eagle Kingdom and then grow together. After their strength increased, they would have more confidence to deal with the rise of the Fire Kingdom. In fact, no matter what choice I make, I feel that I can't stop my rise. With the growth of my strength, I will soon become a behemoth. But I could try to make the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Fort believe that I only covet the mainland land of the Eagle Kingdom. After annexing a part of the Eagle Kingdom, I will be satisfied and stand on equal footing with them. He was too lazy to think about this kind of head-hurting diplomatic strategy. He might as well leave it to the development committee to worry about after he went back. In the autumn of 156 of the Sapphire calendar, the war for expansion began in October. The two rich coastlines of the lush corridor and the Gulf of Aden were plundered successively and ended at the end of December. The knight who broke through the enemy lines returned to their territories, embraced their wives and children, and also brought back countless spoils of war. This time, there were tens of thousands of Earth Knight, hundreds of thousands of Trainee Knight, and hundreds of thousands of serfs who were forced to migrate to the Fire Kingdom. There were also a large number of aristocratic lords among them. However, the majority of these aristocratic lords had directly surrendered and were not treated as captives. List was too embarrassed to forcibly take away their wealth. There were very few captives who were truly captured, and even fewer captives who were willing to pay ransom in exchange for freedom, because there was no point in going back. The entire lush corridor and the Gulf of Aden were already empty. The population, resources, sprites, and so on were all packed up and taken away. The Fire Dragon freighter and Iron Dragon warship were like public buses, going back and forth to the Spirit Island and the coastline. When the Eagle royal family received the information sent back by the rats, List did not know what Adonis was thinking, but he was definitely very happy. As the last fleet left the coastline of the continent, he also immediately left and returned to Flame Island, where he silently counted the harvest of this time's war for expansion. Compared to last year's hasty development order, this year's preparations were more adequate and the scale was also larger. As a result, the population and resource harvest were more than 4 times that of last year. Unfortunately, there were too many greater aristocrats who had surrendered, and List did not get many sprites to replenish himself. With only a few lesser sprites and a batch of sprite worms, the harvest was not as great as that of the sprites born on Flame Island. Father, the knight who joined this time's development order must be carefully arranged and strictly supervised. Many of them used to secretly run mercenary groups, doing shady business. I do not want them to come to the Fire Kingdom and bring this kind of atmosphere with them. Rest assured, I will carefully manage these knight. Any aristocrat who violates the law, no matter how high their rank is, must be dealt with severely. Punishing them without warning is somewhat not benevolent enough. Father, it would be better for you to draft the Fire Kingdom's Knight Management Code in my name, stipulating which behaviors are to be encouraged and which behaviors must be prohibited. Recently, the Development Committee has been compiling the laws of the future Fire Kingdom. The main body has already been completed, and we can just casually extract some regulations from it to compile the Fire Kingdom's Knight Management Code. Lee William explained. His biggest task as the Development Committee member was to prepare for the establishment of a country. A country, especially a kingdom, once established, all aspects of laws and regulations, social system, production and construction, diplomatic strategy, internal framework, and the enfeoffment of night had to be perfected as soon as possible. Otherwise, the country would sooner or later fall into chaos. In fact, if not for List's formidable deterrence, the Fire Kingdom would have long since descended into chaos. The composition of the population was too unbalanced. Currently, the Moon Killer was the largest group of people, but most of them belonged to the lowest class. At first, they might be happy because they could leave the forest and live a full life, but over time, they would see that other people were living better lives, and it was inevitable that their mentality would explode. Fortunately, the ancient wizards among the Moon Killer had been properly settled, and the resentment of the serfs at the bottom was not a big problem. The second largest group of people were the Eagle Men, who had migrated in batches. Some were captives who had surrendered, while others were serfs who had been sold. Language, culture, and customs made it inevitable for the Eagle Men to group together for warmth. This was a very big barrier. Even if the Eagle Men were forcibly dispersed and placed in different cities, they would still form cliques. Then there were the senators known as the Flame Men, who were the most loyal to List, but their numbers were too small. In short, the Fire Kingdom was like a plate of loose sand that had been forcibly squeezed together by List. With his powerful strength, he used the strict hierarchy of nobles, commoners, and serfs under the knight system to maintain it. It would take a long time to completely stabilize it before everyone could be converted into Fire Kingdom subjects. List was not worried about this. As long as he existed, the Fire Kingdom would not fall into chaos. He now had a new expectation. It's almost New Year's Day. The Red and White Rose family's emissary group should be arriving soon. I wonder what gifts my old friend has sent this year. Chapter 1047. The gifts from the Rose and White Rose family were still the same: platinum potions and red dragon water. It seemed that other gifts did not show the wealth of the Rose and White Rose family. But this year, Matthew Rose White Rose did not come. She only brought a greeting letter from her sister, Marilyn. In the letter, she mainly asked about List and Achi, and revealed her admiration for List. She also mentioned that she had graduated from the aristocratic girls' school in the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and returned to live in the Grand Duchy of Rose. She also hoped that List would bless her next birthday. Anyway, this was the signal of marriage. As long as List agreed, the Rose and White Rose family would immediately send Marilyn over and make her the queen of the Fire Kingdom. But absorbing the Phoenix incarnation could prolong his life. After a few hundred years of life, he had little need for marriage and children. In fact, even if he had a strong need, he would not marry a woman he had never met. White paper and glass products in exchange for platinum potions and red dragon water. This friendship can continue. However, when the Fire Kingdom is established next year, our friendship will probably break apart. I'm such a scary person. I'm willing to sacrifice my body for my dragon. TSK, TSK. Thinking of this, he wrote a formal reply without showing any enthusiasm. Maybe he found his conscience. He even hoped that the Rose and White Rose family would find out his indifference and break off the idea of marriage. In any case, he did not want an innocent girl to be involved in the politics of the adults. After writing the reply, he sent someone to deliver it. It was the last day of December, the day before the New Year's Day. For several days, he had been feasting with his followers and conferring new titles. Under the relaxed promotion environment, a large number of knights had become nobles, and small nobles had easily become big nobles. When it came to the level of count and above, the promotion process would be very strict. So far, except for the nobles who already had the title of Duke and Marquis, they could easily get their titles back. Only Emily was conferred the title of Marquis because of her success in riding a dragon. As for the Duke, there was still only Piero Grayiron, a noble with a title. Although List intended to promote his father to a duke, the promotion ceremony would be held after the founding of the country. However, the promotion ceremony would be held after the founding of the nation. William Lee was still a marquis. There were also the 7 mermaids who were very powerful and helped him manage the sea. In the future, they would gradually be conferred the title of duke. They were originally kings of the sea, and on land, they were at least equivalent to grand dukes. However, at this time, the kingdom of the sea had long been destroyed. The purification of the devil's sea required Achi to preside over. Therefore, the title of duke was the highest title that List could give to the mermaids. In the future, I can set a precedent in the Fire Kingdom. The limit of a Sky Knight is Marquis. As long as I break through the shackles of perfection and become a Domain Knight, I can continue to advance to Duke. This way, Di Maria Rainflowerstone and the other followers will have even more enthusiasm to do things. For most nobles, becoming a Marquis was their greatest goal in life. After all, very few non-dragon-raising families could become dukes. Once they became marquises, these great nobles would lose their drive. As for the Dragon Knight, I'm afraid that under my rule, it will be difficult for a new dragon-raising family to be born. List rode the invisible dragon bard, flying slowly in the sky. Because all the dragons that can be discovered will eventually become my dragons, and I refuse to let anyone touch them. He still remembered the scene he saw when he activated the Scepter of Time. Although it was only a possibility in the future, he deeply remembered what the future Achi had said. Achi told him to ride all the dragons and told him that the fairy dragon was in the land of exile. Everyone can share the elves, but the dragons must belong to me. At this moment, Lis stood at the top of the sacred mountain of the Killing Moon people, looking at the vigorous construction of the future palace. He was very proud of himself. All of this was fought for by him. After asking Chi, Emily, Father, and the others, the sacred mountain of the Killing Moon people finally has a new name. The mountain range on the left is called Moon Mountain, the mountain range on the right is called Sun Mountain, and the valley is called Sun Moon Valley. As for the palace standing between Moon Mountain and Sun Mountain, it is called Sun Moon Palace. Heaven and earth were black and yellow. The universe was chaotic. The sun and the moon were dim, and the constellations were arranged. The meaning of the name Sun Moon Palace was to include the universe, and Sun Mountain and Moon Mountain were to inherit the glory of the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire in the ancient times. All countries liked to claim that they were the direct descendants of the Moon Empire, showing off that they had inherited the ancient civilization. Lis simply caught them all at once. Not only did he inherit the Moon Empire, but he also inherited the Sun Empire. In addition, many countries liked to name their cities, palaces, and surnames after dragons. The palace of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom was called the Platinum Tooth Palace, after the Platinum Dragon, Platinum Dragon. The palace of the Eagle Kingdom was called the Iron Dragon Chain Palace, after the White Iron Dragon. The palace of the Blast Furnace Kingdom was called the Golden Supreme Palace, after the Golden Dragon. The founders of these royal families were probably the Platinum Dragon Knight, the White Iron Dragon Knight, and the Golden Dragon Knight. Therefore, the palace was named after them. However, Lis had too many dragons, and every single one of them was a Dragon Knight. Naming one dragon after another was too narrow, and there was no way to be fair. He used the flame as his surname, the name of the kingdom, and the status of the fire dragon Leo. He could still use his first time riding a dragon as an excuse. If he named them after any other dragons, it would cause the dissatisfaction of the other dragons. As a dragon knight of many dragons, he had to balance it. His heart was so tired. He really wanted to train a group of dragon knight to share the burden. The construction of the Sun Moon Palace is 1/3 complete. In another half a year, the main part should be completed, and then we can move in. After the main part is completed, the remaining parts are some wonders. This requires the cooperation of magic shooters, so there is no hurry. I'll leave it to Chi. Women all like to decorate their own houses. Lis simply handed over the spectacular style to Chi to play with. Needless to say, Chi was really interested in this aspect. She had already taken the time to design all kinds of wonders. Some of the creativity even amazed Lis, such as flying moats, vertical elevators, small magic doors, air parks, artificial sun, moon, and stars, crystal colorful covers, dragon sculptures of equal proportions, eternal torches, endless cumulonimbus clouds. She wanted to make the Sun Moon Palace a place where God lived. Don't mess around too much, Chi. You still have to save where it's necessary. After all, our family is big, and we have several dragons to feed. Chi stuck out her little tongue playfully. Brother, don't worry. Chi is just using the Sun Moon Palace to do experiments to verify some magic technical problems. Lis only smiled. Then he rubbed Chi's beautiful blue hair hard. No matter what it was, he wanted it. You're tuning in to the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.